The story begins in the heart of an industrial complex shrouded in the twilight of sunset, where a strict order was issued to find two fugitives immediately. The pursuers, led by a man holding a gun, were convinced that the fugitives had not gone far and instructed their men to kill them on sight. In one of the alleys, a silver-haired girl was embracing a severely wounded young man covered in blood. Despite his critical condition, he was urging her to flee and save herself. But the girl, whose blood-stained face was marked by tears of despair, flatly refused his request, screaming her rejection. She bitterly wondered what the point of surviving alone without him would be, expressing her absolute refusal to leave him behind. The injured young man looked at her with a faint smile, asking if they should just die together then. The girl was stunned by his question while he lay exhausted on the ground, insisting he was speaking seriously. Suddenly, he grabbed her firmly and pulled her toward him, revealing his intense jealousy and admitting he couldn't stand the thought of seeing her with another man at all. After hearing his confession, she held his hand in sorrow and, with a steady voice, agreed to his suggestion that they die together. He was surprised by her response and wondered in shock if she had lost her mind. He suddenly rose with difficulty, pulling her with him and telling her to stop this nonsense and flee immediately to save her life. But at that moment, his eyes widened in shock as a gun was suddenly pointed at them. In a desperate reaction to protect her, he pushed her away while shouting in refusal. Just before the sound of a gunshot rang out, he fell bleeding on top of her, pleading for her to live and survive. She held him while screaming his name, Dokyom, as he breathed his last in her arms, while the girl wept bitterly over his body, whispering that if he died like this, she would. The scene suddenly shifted to a selection screen inside a video game, where two choices were presented to her: either follow him in death or avenge him. The perspective moved to the real world, where a girl wearing glasses stared at the screen in shock, realizing that what was happening was a guaranteed death flag for her character in the game. She was sitting in front of her laptop, lamenting reaching another bad ending where everyone dies. She let out a surprised sigh when she realized how many hours she had spent immersed in this game. The game was an adult-rated romance simulation called Gangster's Love, famous not for its bold content, but for its tragic and violent story. Despite rumors that it had no happy ending, the girl stubbornly insisted on trying to reach one. She had witnessed the bad ending dozens of times and began to wonder if continuing to play was the right thing to do. She checked her phone to read a review of the game, which mentioned that playtime reached 40 hours, summarizing that the protagonist Seo Dokyom dies, and the heroine Yoon Sol is on the verge of death as well. She read sarcastic comments from other players who had quit early, confirming that all paths led to bad endings, and that the game relied entirely on the main lead's charm. Despite her exhaustion and hesitation, she decided she might continue playing just to see the ending for herself before giving up for good. Back in the game, her character Yoon Sol chose the first option, grabbed the gun, said this was her love for Dokyom, and pointed it at her head. The phrase, "Bad ending 26 of 100 appeared on the screen, making the player wonder exhaustedly how many more times the two protagonists would die. She began to think about how attached the heroine was to the protagonist. Despite his handsomeness, dating a gangster leads only to destruction, a fact everyone knows. In the world of Gangster's Love, the protagonist was the leader of the underworld, and falling in love with him meant a 99% chance of death. The girl stood up from her seat, sincerely wondering why she was wasting her time playing this tragic game she described as trash. The player wondered in bed why this was happening on a special day like this, where she was celebrating her birthday alone with a fast food meal and a small piece of cake. She looked coldly at her phone screen, which was full of birthday greetings and promotional notifications, mocking the idea that it was a special day. She got out of bed and started drinking beer, grumbling about this miserable celebration that she sarcastically described as a very joyful birthday. In a fit of anger and despair, she pounded her desk with her fists, wondering aloud what was so special about birthdays anyway. She tried to convince herself she was fine, justifying that her life never contained any special moments worth mentioning. She looked at her computer clock, which indicated it was nearly 4 a.m., and realized there was still a long way to go to reach a new ending in the game. Exhaustion overcame her and she rested her head on her desk. Despite her strong denial, her true feelings of loneliness were perfectly clear. She remembered the tragic scene where Dokyom admitted he couldn't stand seeing his beloved with another man, and at that moment, the player admitted to herself that love was something she had completely given up on in her life. The tragic scene in the game continued with the girl pointing the gun at her head after her lover's death, deepening the player's sense that she had lived her life without ever experiencing such a feeling. On this birthday, she wondered why she was thinking differently and secretly wished she could experience that kind of love, even just once. Suddenly, a loading screen appeared on her computer, and she found herself face to face with a young man wearing a school uniform, whom she realized was a younger version of Seo Dokyum. Confusion took hold of her as she wondered why she could see the details of his face so clearly, as if she were actually close to him. She looked around in shock to discover she was no longer in her room but inside a classroom, her eyes fixed on a slogan hanging on the wall urging students to eat your meals properly, which added to her confusion and astonishment. She looked at her hands in disbelief, realizing she could actually touch the objects around her. She felt her school uniform and found a name tag bearing the name Baek Yi-hai, realizing it was indeed her, but she didn't understand why she was in this school uniform. When she looked at her reflection in the mirror, she was surprised by her new features. Despite her shock, she couldn't help but admit to herself that she looked beautiful. She went through moments of denial and shock, which are typical stages protagonists go through when transported to another world, starting with confusion, then slapping herself to make sure she wasn't in a dream, and finally screaming in despair. Finally, she began to accept the fact that she had indeed transitioned into the world of the game Gangster's Love. She noticed that Seo Dokyam was staring directly at her name tag, Baek Yi-hai, which made her feel confused and anxious. She grabbed her shirt nervously while the scene was still loading, his steady gaze increasing her agitation. Suddenly, a system window similar to a game interface appeared before her, welcoming her and announcing that the little gangster, Seo Dokyam, has noticed the existence of the supporting character, Baek Yi-hai. She was struck with amazement as she realized that what she saw was a special status window for the game, confirming that she was no longer in her real world. Another system message appeared stating that Dokyam began to feel interested in her. She was shocked by this unexpected development and dismissed it as nonsense. Panic seized her, realizing that a gangster's interest in her, even if he was the protagonist, did not bode well at all. Meanwhile, the teacher entered the class to announce the end of the school day, while students grumbled about his lateness. Yi-hai felt increasing anxiety, wondering if this sudden interest from Dokyam would indeed bring her trouble. Glowing system icons appeared between her and Dokyam, and she wondered in horror if the protagonist had targeted her. After that, a guide map appeared before her showing the fastest way to reach the home of her parents' friends, and she began walking following the instructions. As she walked down the street, she tried to calm herself and process the new surreal situation she suddenly found herself in. She remembered when she went to the school's computer lab to search for the game Gangster's Love, but found no results, making her realize that this game does not exist in this world. While walking outside, she realized that the status window appearing before her was the only thing she could rely on, as it was the same window she had seen constantly in her previous world until the moment of her death. Her character information for Baek Yi-hai appeared in the system window, revealing her tragic background. She lost her father at an early age, her mother had recently passed away, and she was now a second-year transfer student who would live in the home of her parents' friends. A sense of loneliness overcame her, as she realized that even after moving to a new world, she was still alone. She thought about her inevitable fate as the character Baek Yi-hai, and wished she had taken on the role of the heroine Unsol, but quickly reconsidered, realizing the heroine's life would be shorter and more dangerous. Suddenly, Seo Dokyam appeared behind her and told her she was going the wrong way. She was startled by his sudden appearance and extreme proximity, jumping away from him while shouting in protest and anger. When she recognized him, she asked him in confusion and surprise why he was on this path, but the system window warned her that her reaction had aroused Dokyam's displeasure, making her scream internally for fear that this situation would lead her to a bad ending. To her surprise, Dokyam showed no anger. Instead, he turned and began to walk away silently, leaving her puzzled. The system window appeared again, this time displaying a map showing his path with an order to follow him, only for her to discover that their way home was the same. She walked behind him, thinking about this strange situation. Being his seatmate and having the same way home might seem like a stroke of luck, but she was actually scared to death. When they reached their destination, she peeked from behind him to happily announce their arrival. She realized with excitement that this was the large house she would live in, and at that moment, a voice called out to Dokyam, calling him "Young Master." She was surprised by a group of men wearing black suits bowing respectfully to Dokyam and welcoming him back home. She stood frozen in place, question marks filling her head as she couldn't grasp what was happening. Dokyam turned to her and asked what she was doing standing there, telling her to come inside, which increased her shock. Finally, she realized the horrific truth. As a mere supporting character, she would be living in the main protagonist's house. Two huge guard dogs suddenly appeared before her, causing her extreme terror. Her shock increased when the same men in black suits bowed to her and officially welcomed her as Miss Baek Yi-hai. She tried to wiggle out of the situation in great confusion, claiming they had the wrong name and that she was someone else entirely. Her strange behavior puzzled the men, while she secretly wished they would just ignore her. Dokyam coldly interrupted her, asking her to stop joking and come inside, while the system window showed that Dokyam found her joke not funny at all, and he told her he had heard about her from his father. She was stunned to learn that he had prior knowledge of her arrival. She followed him inside, wondering about his father, whom she didn't remember much about from the game since his appearances were very rare. Dokyum entered the luxurious mansion and announced his arrival while the servants were lined up to welcome him. She stood in the mansion's lobby, catching a glimpse of a man standing at the top of the stairs looking at them. He was an elegant man with great prestige, and he addressed her directly, asking if she was Baek Yi-hai. She was overcome with extreme confusion and greeted him in a stuttering voice, realizing she was standing face-to-face with the protagonist's father. Meanwhile, Dokyum's brother was watching the situation with features masked by resentment and boredom. Dokyum went up the stairs while his brother left the place quickly and with indifference. A system window appeared before Yi-hai, announcing in a welcoming manner that the little gangster, Seo Dokyum, welcomes the arrival of the supporting character, Baek Yi-hai, to the mansion. As his father, Seo Yui-hyun, descended the stairs, he noticed her features and confirmed her identity. He approached her to tell her she looked a lot like her mother, which shocked her and made her realize she was in front of the leader of a gangster family. Extreme confusion took hold of her, and she wondered in a state of amazement how he could know her mother. She quickly connected the events, concluding that if her parents were friends with a mob boss, they might have been gangsters too, which Seo Yui-hyun confirmed when he commented that she was as absent-minded as her father. The man introduced himself as Seo Yui-hyun. He explained to her that this house was not normal, realizing that the sudden move to live there might be confusing. But he confirmed that all this was being carried out in accordance with her parents' last will, so there was no other choice. The text of the will was revealed, asking them to protect Baek Yi-hai until she reached the age of majority. But Yui-hyun added a condition. She would not face any disturbance as long as she stayed within her boundaries on the floor where she would reside. She panicked at the thought of living as a dependent in the protagonist's house, which was full of danger and potential threats. But her biggest concern suddenly shifted to a practical matter as she screamed, asking about the monthly rent because she had no money. Seo Yui-hyun was surprised by her question about rent, and one of his men informed him of her misunderstanding of the situation. Yui-hyun sighed sarcastically and asked her if he looked like a loan shark extorting money from students, confirming that her stay would be completely free, which increased her own suspicion and doubt. She tried to evade the situation with a nervous smile, suggesting she would return home to think about it, having resolved to run away. Yui-hyun coldly interrupted her, telling her she no longer had a home to return to because he had sold it. She was stunned and shocked by this sudden news. She confronted him angrily, refusing to believe what he said and asking what right he had to do that. She suddenly changed her plan and waved to Dokyum with a fake smile, announcing that she would go in now and see him at school tomorrow, while she was planning to run away and change her school if possible. While she was mocking the whole situation and how someone could sell another's house so easily, even in a fictional world, her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound. The system window appeared to announce an update to her profile. Her current status was that her house had been sold, and she had become a homeless vagrant. She stood silently, absorbing the update that appeared before her on the system window. Faced with this harsh reality, she collapsed to her knees, wondering angrily if being gangsters gave them the right to do whatever they wanted. Dokyum and his father approached her. He turned to her and asked if she was okay. He grabbed her arm and asked what was wrong with her, so she gathered her strength and decided to adapt to the situation. At that moment, her features completely changed to a smiling and bright face, and she announced to Mr. Yui-hyun that she had decided to stay to fulfill her parents' will, thereby activating survival mode. She bowed in complete submission, announcing that she would reside here with all humility, which impressed Dokyum's father, who commented that she was starting to act rationally. Then he ordered his son Dokyum to take her to the room next to his. The son answered in obedience while Yi-hai watched them with a forced smile, preparing for her new life. Dokyum led her to the elevator, so she asked him in confusion about their destination and why they were using it. He coldly replied that they were headed to the second floor, which surprised her. Her surprise increased while inside the elevator, wondering about the necessity of using an elevator just to reach the second floor, especially since they boarded it from the third floor, reflecting the sheer size of the mansion. Upon their arrival, Dokyum stopped in front of one of the doors and told her this was her room, asking her to change her clothes and that he would return later. Then he added that he wanted to say something else. He turned toward her with a serious look to warn her that it was in her best interest to behave quietly, revealing his intense hatred of having his nerves rattled. Trembling took hold of her as she realized she had officially caught the dangerous protagonist's attention. After delivering his warning, Dokyum announced his departure and left. After being left alone, she opened her room door only to be shocked by its luxury and spaciousness, which exceeded all her expectations. She stood silently contemplating the large room with elegant furniture, which included a piano, a large wardrobe, and a desk. Total amazement took hold of her at the beauty and luxury of the room, and she couldn't hide her intense fascination. She wandered around the room exploring its contents happily, from the luxurious bed to the modern computer. and even a large, cute teddy bear. But she soon regained her senses and shook her head, reminding herself that this was not the time to be fascinated and waste time. She went seriously toward the computer, determined to take advantage of her presence in the protagonist's house to gather as much information as possible about this world. She sat in front of the screen and began recalling her last memories from her previous world, which centered around her drinking alcohol while playing the game until she was overcome by sleep while suffering from a sharp headache. She also remembered her wish that night, when she wished to experience that kind of deep love she saw in the game at least once in her life. Horror struck her when she connected her wish to what had happened to her, wondering if she had moved into this body because of that desperate wish. Panic seized her, and she wondered if she now had to date Seo Dokyam, assuring herself that she wasn't so desperate as to wish for something like this. She noticed something strange. She didn't remember a character named Baek Yi-hai in the original game, and she realized her current appearance resembled her real appearance, and her circumstances as an orphan matched her previous life. She concluded that this character might have been designed specifically for her, and that her personal settings in real life had become the settings for the Baek Yi-hai character in this world. She began searching for information, but remembered that the game focused mainly on the perspective of the heroine Unsol, so there wasn't enough information about side characters or how Yi-hai's parents were involved with the Seo family. She remembered the only confirmed piece of information she knew, which was that Seo Dokyam entered the world of gangsters early after his father's tragic death. She recalled a dialogue from the game stating that the protagonist's father died in the summer of their second year of high school, and that the cause of death was an assassination by a spy, which forced Dokyam to take over the leadership of the Yuhyun faction to replace his father. She suddenly realized that she was now in her second year of high school, and the timing perfectly matched the events preceding the main story. She concluded that she was living in a time period 1 year before the main game events began, a period that only appeared in the game as a brief introduction while Dokyam's father was still alive. Anxiety took hold of her as she thought about that man, Dokyam's father, being killed soon, and that his son would inevitably walk the path of destruction. She sat at her desk, realizing she was the only person who knew the future, and wondered if she could intervene to stop Dokyam's tragic fate. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a violent thud as someone suddenly appeared behind her after opening the room door forcefully, frightening her. It was a young man smiling sarcastically. He asked her disdainfully what she was doing, describing her as a vagrant who attached herself to the computer immediately upon arrival. Her anger flared at his insult, and she wondered to herself who this rude person was who dared to call her a vagrant. But she soon recognized him. He was the same young man she had seen earlier on the staircase railing, Dokyam's brother. Suddenly, the young man grabbed the chair she was sitting on, shouting in her face and criticizing her sudden decision to live with them. Dokyam's brother shouted in her face, asking her not to interfere in their family affairs and to leave immediately. But she wasn't terrified. Instead, she thought to herself with anger and disapproval, calling him a rude bastard and emphasizing that she hadn't wanted to come here in the first place. She stood up and faced him bravely, asking him to leave her room immediately, and wondering angrily about the reason for his strange behavior. In the midst of this quarrel, Dokyam entered quietly and placed his hand on his brother's shoulder to stop him. He then blamed him for using foul language before turning to Yi-hai and asking her why she hadn't changed out of her school uniform yet. The younger brother retreated, calling him brother, while Yi-hai confirmed his identity to herself, realizing he was indeed Seo Dokyam's younger brother. The younger brother complained about her hostility, so Dokyam coldly replied that he was no better than her, pointing out that both of them were wrong. Dokyam ended the argument, asking them both to go downstairs because everything was ready. Yi-hai wondered in confusion why they were being summoned and what had become ready. When she went down, she found before her a luxurious dining table beyond imagination, filled with the most delicious food and a huge birthday cake. She was astonished by the luxury of the food and asked them if they usually ate like this. Dokyam's father explained to her that this was a special occasion and asked her not to stand but to sit and eat. Then Dokyam revealed the reason for the celebration, telling her it was her birthday, which caused her extreme shock. The father added that her birthday coincided with her arrival and that she must have gone through a hard time, asking her to eat well to cheer herself up. Then Dokyam's brother ordered the servants to bring the cake. She sat at the table in a state of shock, while a system window appeared warning that Dokyam had noticed an abnormal state in her behavior. Indeed, Dokyam noticed her tearful eyes and asked her directly if she was crying. Yi-hai tried hard to suppress her tears, which overcame her as she contemplated the family scene around the table. She ate a piece of cake and enjoyed its rich taste, commenting to herself that she was tasting the flavor of money, not just cake. Her voracity in eating surprised the younger brother, who asked her sarcastically if she had been starving for days. While Dokyam watched her with interest, another system window appeared stating that he was fascinated by her gluttony. She noticed his gaze and wondered sarcastically if he was looking at her as if she were a hungry dog. The father urged them to eat, and the atmosphere turned into family warmth as they thanked him for the meal. Yi-hai was deeply moved, wondering how long it had been since she shared a meal with someone, and never expected them to celebrate her birthday. The father interrupted this quiet moment, announcing that he had an important announcement. Dokyeom gave him permission to speak, while Yihai was thinking about enjoying a quiet and isolated life in this mansion. The father addressed Dokyeom and Yihai and announced his intention to hold their engagement next spring when they reached the age of majority. The news was so shocking to her that she spat water from her mouth in a state of complete disbelief. His brother screamed in disgust at her reaction, describing what she did as disgusting. She gathered herself and confronted Dokyeom, asking him if he was aware of this, not believing she would turn from a guest into a fiancé. Dokyeom replied with cold confidence that he had known for a while. She exploded in anger, insisting this was madness and that it was the first time she had heard of it. Dokyeom's father explained that this decision was made as a covenant between the families even before either of them was born. Confusion hit Yihai, and she wondered to herself about the fate of the original heroine, Ye Eun-sol, if she was the one to become Dokyeom's fiancé. Realizing with horror that she had thus taken the villainous path in the story, she protested strongly against this decision, denouncing the right of adults to decide their fates, and added that even if she cared about appearance, she cared more about a man's personality. Her comment angered the younger brother, Seo Yul, who stood up and slammed the table hard, defending his brother's character and wondering who she was to reject him like that. The quarrel between them escalated as she shouted in his face that this entire family was a burden to her. Yul replied by telling her to reject the engagement and leave immediately, so she answered that this was better for him because he hated her anyway. The father interrupted their quarrel with a firm voice and an angry look, ordering everyone to be silent. Then he directed his words to his younger son, Yul, scolding him for his loud voice. The father continued his scolding, reminding him of the need to adhere to table manners and not to scream. Yul felt embarrassed and fell silent, while Yihai noticed the father was much harsher on him, even though she was also screaming. She looked at him and felt some pity, realizing he must have felt hurt by his father's harshness. After the situation calmed down, the father explained that this engagement was merely a formal and unofficial procedure, and that they would be free to do as they pleased after it was completed. This made Yihai apologize for the chaos and feel relieved, thinking it was natural that the eldest son of a mob boss wouldn't marry just any ordinary girl. She turned to Dokyeom and wondered to herself if he was able to swallow his food after all this noise. Yihai noticed Yul sitting at the table with a sad expression on his face. Later that night, Yihai was sitting on her bed feeling exhausted from the shock of the engagement announcement, grumbling that she had become a minor and couldn't even drink alcohol to relieve her stress. Deeper thoughts occurred to her as she wondered about the fate of her body in her real world and whether she had died or was still asleep, feeling sad about giving up the life she struggled for so easily. But she decided to set these fears aside for now and set one goal before her: survival. She resolved to live as a true side character, quietly and far from the main events, hoping to find a chance to return to her world or at least become independent in the future. She recalled the dinner party, admitting to herself that she had thought of running away immediately at first. But the warmth of that family moment and the celebration held for her made her reconsider the idea of running away for the time being. She realized while remembering those feelings that this was the first time in her life she had such a special birthday. Her reflections were interrupted by soft knocks on her room door, so she wondered in confusion who the knocker was. Dokyeom's voice came from outside, asking her to come out for a moment if she wasn't asleep, which surprised her. She opened the door and he told her the matter wasn't serious or important. He began by apologizing for his brother Yul's behavior, explaining that this was always his nature and asking her not to be affected by his actions. She was confused by his extreme proximity and handsomeness at this late hour, feeling that this situation was unfair. She asked him if he had come to her room at this time just to say that, and he replied in the negative while approaching her even closer. He told her calmly that the two of them must go somewhere together the next day after school. Just the two of them. The next day, she found herself with him at a luxury clothing store and admitted to herself she was terrified they had come to prepare for the engagement. But she soon realized this was the second round of her birthday celebration and that they had come to buy new clothes for her following his father's order, who asked him to buy everything she wanted. She saw this invitation as a wonderful, irreplaceable opportunity and began wandering with him through the store with enthusiasm. She eagerly asked Dokyeom how much she could spend, and he coldly replied that she could take whatever she wanted and that his father had asked him not to worry about such matters. She hid her cunning smile and said to herself that she would spend so much money that the word engagement wouldn't cross his mind again. Dokyeom confirmed his agreement and pulled out a luxury black credit card to present to her. She took it from him, thinking to herself that his words were unexpectedly moving and almost made her heart skip a beat. She grabbed his hand enthusiastically, announcing she was very grateful to his father, thus beginning Operation Disqualification as a Fiancé. Confidently, she grabbed the card and told the saleswoman she would buy everything from this section to that one. But she was shocked when the saleswoman told her the total amount reached over 98 million won. When Dokyeom asked the saleswoman to complete the payment all at once, Total amazement hit her at this extravagance. She tried to backtrack in panic, apologizing and suggesting she would reselect and stick to a few pieces, as she thought the amount would not exceed a few thousand at most. Dokyeom mocked her for her hesitant behavior after appearing confident at first, so she justified her position by saying she hadn't expected this brand to be so outrageously expensive. She stopped for a moment to think, then asked Dokyeom why he had come with her and if he wanted to buy something for himself. He replied in the negative, explaining he came because he had free time and that it would be annoying if she got lost on her way. Yihei realized that this was the tsundere-style protagonists usually follow to show interest indirectly. She admired his hidden kindness, realizing he was the protagonist of a romance story before being a member of a gangster family. She thanked him with a bright smile for his interest and told him she would go try on one of the outfits. While she was walking away, a system window appeared stating that Dokyeom's heart had started beating, which piqued her curiosity. She asked him not to go far and to wait for her, and he agreed. After a few moments, she called him from the fitting room to ask if he was still outside, and he told her to come out. She emerged from the fitting room in a new dress and playfully asked him for his opinion on her appearance. She looked beautiful in the white dress and asked him nervously if it suited her. Dokyeom was confused for a moment, while the system window showed that his heart was beating rapidly for the 17th time. He tried to hide his emotion and told her to choose what she wanted. She asked him if she should buy it if he said it suited her, so he confirmed that angrily, saying he was buying with his father's money anyway. She insisted on asking him if the dress suited her, and he answered in a reserved way that it suited her in its own way. His answer made her happy, and she decided to buy the dress immediately and even wear it out of the store. But she went back and asked the saleswoman to show her other clothes, excluding those that cost thousands of dollars. The employee told her to try everything she liked without restrictions. This situation triggered his heart again. As the system window showed, his heart continued to beat, reaching a cumulative count of 19 times. As the sun set, Yihai felt that day as if she had indeed become the youngest daughter of the CO family. At the car, one of their men asked her to wait a moment until he finished his phone call, and she politely agreed. She sat in the luxury car next to Dokyeom, surrounded by shopping bags, feeling extreme happiness as if she had received a real birthday present. She smiled sincerely and thanked him very much, thinking to herself that in a life like this, the idea of having a fake family might not be a bad thing at all. Yihai expressed her overwhelming happiness while Dokyeom watched her silently. He tried to give credit to his father, saying the money was his, but she insisted on thanking him too for waiting all this time. He replied indifferently that as long as she was satisfied, that was enough. He surprised her with his kindness when he added that he should provide her with at least this much. Then he explained that he was doing this because she was a guest, and his father had asked him to treat her well. Her enthusiasm stopped suddenly upon hearing the word guest, which seemed to draw a dividing line between them. She then realized she was exaggerating her feelings and wondered why she was bothered by this word. She understood the reason for her annoyance was that she realized the truth, which was that he was only taking care of her because she was a guest. But she soon regained her composure and thanked him in her heart for bringing her back to reality. She saw in this action confirmation that he was the protagonist of the story, who knows how to set boundaries clearly. After their return to the mansion, she noticed that the Seo brothers did not welcome her warmly. She realized that Dokyeom represented a constant headache, as he was always disturbing her peace with his cold actions. When they entered, his brother Yul was waiting for them and mocked her new clothes, while Dokyeom ordered one of his men to take the bags to her room, ignoring his brother who always seemed to pick fights with her. Yul tried to show sympathy for Dokyeom, expecting that he hated shopping, but Dokyeom denied it, which frustrated Yul. At that moment, their father appeared from the top of the stairs and invited them to join him for dinner. Despite the tense atmosphere, Yihai tried to integrate with this strange family, especially with the strict rule of having breakfast and dinner together. During dinner, Dokyeom surprised her by offering a luxury piece of meat, asking her about the degree of cooking she preferred. She was astonished by this special treatment, which she considered a VIP class service, while Yul enthusiastically requested the same treatment. Despite all this luxury, Yihai did not forget her status as a side character and the danger of her position as a potential fiancé to a gangster, and she continued to plan a safe escape at the first opportunity available to her. However, despite her plans to escape, she succumbed to the pleasures of her new life, as she appeared relaxing in a luxurious bathtub, admitting to herself that this was real life and that she was tasting the flavor of success. She continued to pamper herself, fully convinced that there is no better cure for the soul than the pleasure of shopping. This feeling of satisfaction and happiness moved with her to the next day at school, where she was completely absent-minded, smiling happily while remembering her new life. Her dreams were interrupted by the angry voice of the teacher, who was repeatedly shouting her name, forcing her to apologize for her distraction. While she felt embarrassed, she noticed that Dokyeom, her seatmate, was staring at her, so she confronted him angrily, asking why he was staring. Meanwhile, the teacher began scolding the entire class, calling their attention to the fact that they had started to slack off just because the vacation was approaching. The word vacation shocked her, as she realized she had been so immersed in luxury that she had completely forgotten this important matter. This word brought her back to the bitter reality, as she remembered a crucial piece of information from the game. Mr. Yui-hyun, Dokyeom's father, dies right before the start of summer vacation in their second school year. A sudden determination took hold of her, and she decided to herself that she would protect Mr. Yui-hyun to prevent his son Dokyeom's character from being corrupted and drifting into the dark world of crime. She added another selfish motivation to her noble one, which was her desire to prolong her luxurious life. But she stopped suddenly and looked at her phone. She began writing a note on her phone titled, "Must save Seo Yui-hyun," realizing that if she succeeded in preventing his death, Dokyeom's character would not turn for the worse. Yihai continued thinking about her plan, wondering if Dokyeom would not become a gangster at all if his father remained alive. She drifted into daydreams, imagining she could live a quiet life next to the handsomest man in the universe if he continued on his straight path until graduation. She suddenly realized that this idea was not bad at all, but her thoughts were cut off by a knock on the car window. That knock was none other than a scary memory of the original heroine, Eun-sol, which struck her with panic, reminding herself that the real heroine would transfer to their school next year, and she shouldn't go too far with her delusions. Dokyeom brought her back to reality with his dry reminder that she was just a guest his father asked him to treat well. She tried to pull herself together and ordered herself to focus on her primary mission and review Mr. Yui-hyun's story to identify the spy who would kill him. She was certain Dokyeom mentioned in the game that his father was killed by a spy. She began analyzing the situation, realizing that since Mr. Yui-hyun was a publicly famous company owner, the spy must be either the owner of a rival company or a leader of another gang. But she ruled out that someone of such status would carry out a spying operation himself and concluded that the killer must be someone very close to him, pretending to be loyal and living with them in the same house. At that moment, a system window appeared to tell her that Dokyeom was peeking at her phone. Dokyeom was surprised by what he read on her screen and asked about the meaning of the phrase, "Must save Mr. Seo Yui-hyun." She panicked and tried to wiggle out of the situation, claiming she hadn't written anything important and that his father was already alive and well. She confronted Dokyeom angrily, asking why he was spying on her phone. In return, he scolded her for writing his father's name in such an informal way, making her realize her mistake and try to find a way out of this predicament. In a desperate attempt to change the subject, she announced with a forced smile that she was a fan of his father. Dokyeom looked at her in confusion, wondering what kind of admiration this was. She continued her act enthusiastically, gushing over his father's handsomeness and youthful appearance, while the driver watched the situation in confusion. Dokyeom asked her calmly what she was worried about as long as his father was handsome, so she realized logic wouldn't save her. She decided to move forward with her crazy act and told him in a cunning whisper that she was worried about becoming his mother. Her words were enough to make the driver lose his mind, as the car suddenly swerved on the road while he screamed in terror. Yihai asked him anxiously if he was okay, while Dokyeom watched the situation silently. The driver scolded himself for losing focus, then whispered to her that what she said was very rude with the son right next to her, and that she didn't really mean it. She assured him she wasn't serious at all, but she realized she couldn't take back her words easily and that she must be careful in the future. She tried to fix the situation and apologized to Dokyeom, assuring him she never thought about this matter and that she only meant he was handsome. He replied that he felt relieved to hear that. She breathed a sigh of relief, amazed at her daring to joke this way with him, and felt she had become more comfortable dealing with him. She returned her focus to her primary mission, the spy case. She was convinced that the spy must be one of Mr. Yui-hyun's closest aides. When she arrived at the mansion, she found Mr. Yui-hyun waiting for her, and she thought that the strike could come at any moment if one of the trusted aides was the traitor. Yui-hyun noticed her distraction and asked her seriously what was occupying her thoughts. She pretended to be calm and greeted him. He kindly asked her about her day at school. She looked at him with pity, thinking that he did not know he would die soon. Mr. Yui-hyun noticed her anxious looks and asked her if something was wrong. She couldn't contain herself and decided to warn him directly, asking him to be mindful of a spy's presence and to keep this matter in mind. After speaking the words, she felt confused and anxious, expecting him to consider her talk mere nonsense. But to her surprise, he answered her calmly and seriously, confirming that he would take her warning into account. She was shocked by his reaction. After reassuring her, he asked her to go change her clothes and come down for dinner. Mr. Yui-hyun departed, while one of his men watched them with a mysterious gaze from a distance. When she entered her room, she couldn't believe that Mr. Yui-hyun had actually believed her. Suddenly, a bright and dazzling system window appeared before her, making her scream and cover her eyes. She noticed that the system window this time was brighter and more powerful than usual. A new quest officially appeared before her. Ensure the survival of Seo Yui-hyun with clear rewards and punishments. In case of success, her affection points with him and the two brothers would rise. And in case of failure, she would face a bad ending upon his death. She was surprised by the existence of a quest system, but she soon saw it as an opportunity, as this had been her goal from the start. She was puzzled by the nature of the rewards, especially the fluctuating affection of the two brothers, and she was terrified by the failure penalty which meant death. Then a tempting additional reward appeared, unlimited allowance provided by Mr. Yuhyun, which sparked her intense excitement. She happily realized that if she succeeded in this mission, everything would be solved because the root of all evil would disappear. However, a feeling of anxiety overcame her. The appearance of the mission at this perfect timing felt as if someone was watching and guiding her. She admitted to herself that there were many mysteries she didn't understand, foremost among them the reason she was transported to this world in the first place. In a desperate attempt, she looked around and shouted, wondering if someone could see her, as usually happens in comic books. But nothing appeared, so she decided to ignore the matter and focus on completing the mission, hoping to discover the truth afterward, whether by returning to her world or by any other means. As soon as she surrendered to the matter, another additional reward appeared, answers to every question that piques her curiosity. She realized angrily that the system had been provoking her all this time and was now trying to motivate her with extra rewards. She screamed at the invisible system, asking sarcastically if it thought she wouldn't be able to save Mr. Yuhyun. Elsewhere, Mr. Yuhyun felt an itch in his ears, while Dokyeom stood behind her room door, feeling puzzled. Yihai made up her mind and defiantly announced that she would definitely save Mr. Yuhyun. The next morning, Mr. Yuhyun was enjoying the beautiful weather while sipping tea. His younger son, Yul, joined him enthusiastically, agreeing with him on the beauty of the weather while adding a large amount of sugar to his coffee. Yul commented that spending time with family makes everything better, while Dokyeom quietly sipped his bitter coffee. Dokyeom wondered to himself why Yihai hadn't come down for breakfast. Dokyeom remembered that she had made a fuss in her room the previous night, but he decided not to worry about her. Suddenly, Yihai appeared carrying a huge toy hammer and began attacking Dokyeom's father from behind, but he managed to dodge her with ease. The father and the two sons were shocked, and Yul shouted in her face, asking if she had gone mad. Yihai was surprised when she saw that Mr. Yuhyun had dodged her strike and wondered how he had done it. Yihai began training Mr. Yuhyun on agility while he was asking her to stop. She told him with a smile that all of this was for his own good. She whispered to him to consider this an investment for the future, while her aura turned into something mysterious and frightening. After finishing her training session, she announced that she would be leaving now. Yul shouted at his father, denouncing his permission for her to go after all that, considering that she hadn't been in her right mind for several days. Yihai reviewed in her mind case 1 of her training, where she deliberately tripped Mr. Yuhyun while he was walking to train his reflexes. Mr. Yuhyun was surprised by her sudden action. Yihai praised his quick wit and agility, while Yul watched in shock as his father was tripped out of nowhere. In case 2, she summoned Mr. Yuhyun to her room door and placed a teddy bear holding a knife in the door opening. Yuhyun was surprised by the doll and quickly stepped away from it. She told him she knew that what she was doing was annoying, but she felt happy with her success in provoking his reaction. And in case 3, while he was sitting at the dining table, he felt a strange movement. He leaned down to look under the table, only to find her hiding there. He was terrified by her sudden appearance. Yuhyun explained to his son Yul that Yihai claims all this is training to improve his reflexes. He advised him to leave her alone, confirming that she would get tired and stop on her own soon. But Yul wondered angrily when she would actually stop. Dokyeom watched the situation silently, while Yihai continued her strange drills from outside the mansion. She thought about giving him an evening training as well. Suddenly, Dokyeom approached her, and she asked him why he was here. He confronted her angrily, wondering if she had gone mad and why she was performing all these strange actions toward his father. He warned her that he didn't know what her goal was, but she would get hurt if she continued in this manner. She replied to him confidently, asking him not to interfere in her affairs and that this was the side character's sorrow, which he would never understand. She explained to him angrily that side characters are always used as fuel for the hero's awakening after their death, wondering if he understood the tragedy of being treated as a plot device. Then she seriously suggested that he should train with his father too, but he refused, saying he wasn't interested. He calmly advised her to take care of herself instead of doing useless things. Then he added sarcastically that she should stop reading those fantasy novels, which shocked her. Dokyeom departed, while a system window appeared stating that he was worried this pitiful side character would be crushed by his father. Yihai felt insulted, wondering what hell he was talking about, and that his father was the one on the verge of death, telling him not to come thanking her later. After Yihai left, Yul approached his brother. Yul told Dokyeom that he didn't believe what Yihai said, but her words had sparked his concern. Doubt crept into Yul's heart as he wondered if their father was in real danger, but Dokyeom coldly reassured him, confirming that nothing of the sort would happen. Yul explained that he didn't mean to question their father's strength, but he found it strange that his father allowed Yihai to wander around and stir rumors about spies so easily. Yul asked his older brother to watch Yihai closely for his sake. Dokyum agreed to his brother's request while watching her go up the stairs, then replied that he understood. In another scene, Mr. Yuihyun was receiving a report from Secretary Oh, who stated that investigations had not revealed any clear signs of an internal spy in the organization. But he added that there was a possibility the spy hadn't started full activity yet, or was working from the outside to avoid suspicion. For this reason, they were planning to strengthen security measures. After the secretary finished his report, frustration appeared on Mr. Yuihyun's face. He summarized the situation as having made no real progress, then allowed the secretary to leave, but Secretary Oh stopped him, asking permission to pose one question. He explained that his question concerned Miss Baek Yihai. He asked his boss directly how much he trusted her, which piqued Mr. Yuihyun's surprise. He justified his question by saying he knew she was the daughter of one of his close friends, but he felt there was other information being hidden. He expressed his concern, explaining that while he trusts his boss blindly, he cannot trust Yihai in the same way, especially since she is the appointed fiancée of the eldest son, and the organization must deal with her cautiously. Mr. Yuihyun interrupted him sternly, confirming that he did not need his doubts and that he personally guaranteed this girl's background, then ordered him to leave. Secretary Oh left the office to find a woman waiting for him. She turned out to be team leader Cha Yi-ryong. She greeted him and told him she had a report to present to the president. The secretary made way for her. Then Cha Yi-ryong introduced herself to Mr. Yuihyun before entering. Mr. Yuihyun was surprised by her early return, as her mission abroad was supposed to end next week. She explained that she had finished her work and returned ahead of schedule. She gave him a summary of observations regarding internal employees and added that she wanted to see him as soon as possible after hearing some surprising news. She commented on a young and beautiful lady joining the family. Yuihyun asked her sharply if she had conducted an investigation into her background. She replied that she hadn't exactly done that, but she was aware of her presence beforehand. She admitted she was surprised when she learned of her move to the mansion as a fiancé and questioned the appropriateness of this connection. Yuihyun interrupted her sternly, confirming that this was none of her business. She apologized immediately, but he told her that her return came at a convenient time and that he had been planning to introduce her to her anyway. He explained to her that Yihai had recently lost her mother and become completely alone, and that she must be in great pain. Ms. Cha expressed her understanding. Yuihyun added that he finds himself caring for her a lot because her situation reminds him of Ms. Cha's situation when she was young. She expressed her understanding and offered to go greet her since she was already there. Mr. Yuihyun agreed and thanked her. After she left, she stood in front of his room door with a serious and mysterious expression. A confirmation window for the mission Protect Seo Yuihyun appeared. Yihai was looking for Mr. Yuihyun in the mansion's vast garden, wondering why he wasn't at his usual evening stroll spot. She felt anxious about the difficulty of finding him in this vast place, especially with sunset approaching. Suddenly, someone appeared behind her, and she wondered in fear if Mr. Yuihyun was avoiding her. But the person who appeared was not Mr. Yuihyun, but Secretary Oh with a terrifying aura, asking her what she was doing here, which caused her extreme panic. She tried to pretend to be calm and laughed confusedly, claiming she was looking for Mr. Yuihyun. Secretary Oh confronted her sharply, asking her if she was planning to arrange another prank on the president. She denied it strongly, confirming she wasn't joking, but was seriously trying to train Mr. Yuihyun's agility. Secretary Oh suddenly cornered her and told her he would get straight to the point. He warned her with a clear, threatening tone that he could deal with anyone who posed a danger to his family without any hesitation. He stepped away from her, confirming he trusted that she understood what he meant, and asked her to keep this matter in mind. She froze in place, feeling afraid, and wondered if she was about to be disposed of. Terror of this man seized her, and she wondered to herself if this was a mission that required her to risk her life to achieve success. While she was trembling with fear, Secretary Oh cast a sharp and deadly look. After he left, she sighed with relief, grumbling about the damn mob boss who didn't realize how dangerous the situation was, while she was almost intimidated by his assistant. She suddenly remembered that she hadn't searched an important place yet, the president's office, which is only allowed with permission. She saw that this was not the time for hesitation, especially since the lights were still on, and decided to launch a surprise attack, considering that life is a real battlefield. But as soon as she tried to sneak into the office, she was stopped by the guards who prevented her from entering. She pleaded with them to let her in and out quickly. The guards grabbed her, expressing their shock at her terrifying request, while she tried to retract her words. She shouted in their faces angrily, saying they didn't understand the reality of what was going on. Suddenly, a voice appeared asking the guards to leave her alone, and team leader Cha Yi-ryong appeared. Yihei was surprised by the appearance of this beautiful woman, and couldn't remember who she was. She was sure that if she had seen her in the game, she would have remembered her because of her attractive appearance. She realized she possessed enough beauty to threaten the status of the original heroine, Yoon-sol, and at that moment, Ms. Cha spoke, expressing her curiosity to finally meet her. She greeted her kindly, and Yihai stuttered out a greeting in confusion. Ms. Cha ordered the guards to leave, explaining they had something to discuss. She apologized to Yihei for the chaos, explaining that the president's office is a restricted area, and praised her beauty. The flattery caused her extreme confusion, and she tried to deny it, but she confirmed to her that she was truly beautiful. In a desperate attempt to get out of the situation, she claimed she only wanted to ask the old man about tomorrow morning's menu. Ms. Cha smiled, commenting on the cuteness of her question, and realized that this was what Yihei was worried about. Ms. Cha approached Yihei kindly, telling her they would meet a lot from now on, and offered for her to ask her next time if she had any inquiries. Yihei agreed in confusion. Then Ms. Cha introduced herself formally, explaining she was Cha Yiriyoung, responsible for serving Mr. Seo Yuihyun. She extended her hand to shake hers, asking her to simply call her Team Leader Cha. Yihai shook her hand, expressing her look forward to working with her in the future. Ms. Cha reciprocated, then offered to escort her to her room and discuss the breakfast menu on the way. Yihai happily agreed, thinking she would have to continue training Mr. Yuihyun the next day. While Ms. Cha walked away, Yihai wondered about this mysterious character with captivating features and how she was just a marginal character in the game. A strong feeling seized her that this woman would be a great ally for her in her mission. After that, at school, the teacher alerted Yihai to her frequent daydreaming lately, asking her to be more careful. Yihai admitted to herself that she couldn't stop daydreaming. She was worried about the passing of time and wondered if she was truly capable of protecting Mr. Yuihyun. From the classroom window, she glimpsed the bodyguards doing their work diligently outside. She contemplated the window anxiously, then was surprised by a sharp look from Secretary Oh, who was staring directly at her. She remembered his warning words where he said he could deal with any threat to his family without hesitation. She shivered with fear and realized that the guard's presence around her wasn't for protection as much as it was for surveillance. She wondered why the system window was silent and no updates about the mission progress appeared. In a fit of frustration, she began punching the air, wondering where the system window was and demanding it appear. Suddenly, the system window appeared to tell her that little gangster Seo Dokyum was watching her as she punched the air with an attack power of 20 points. She turned to find Dokyum standing at the end of the hallway. He told her that he felt from the beginning she was a ridiculous and laughable character. She got angry at his mockery and threatened that she would actually hit him, then reminded him that everything she does is to protect his father. Dokyum sighed in despair, reminding her that he asked her to behave quietly. She suddenly stopped him and grabbed his hand, telling him she had an important question. He looked at her coldly and asked for her question. She asked him directly what kind of person Mr. O represents in their family. He was surprised by her question, so she explained that if she wanted to protect his father, she might need Mr. O's help, and therefore she was thinking of getting closer to him. Dokyum answered her calmly, explaining that he had known Mr. O since childhood and that his father values him highly, as he was the one who rushed to help them when their family was at its worst. She listened to his words while thinking that this deep loyalty makes the matter more difficult. The more the trust, the easier it is for the spy to remain hidden. She concluded that this means the most suspicious person now is Mr. O, and wondered how she could convince the SEO family of this truth. She grabbed his hand firmly and asked him to listen to her carefully, even if her words sounded like nonsense. She told him she had been training hard because his father was being monitored by many forces and something dangerous could happen at any time. She assured him that what she was doing had nothing to do with drama, but was just intuition, and that she was on high alert for the presence of a spy. Yihai sincerely asked him to trust her just this once, but she immediately realized she might have ruined it with this direct request. She noticed that her hands were trembling with intense tension and anxiety. Dokyum surprised her when he answered calmly that he would trust her. She was so shocked by his answer that she didn't believe what she heard. He assured her that he might not believe in intuition, but he would try to believe her just this time. She was overwhelmed with happiness and deep emotion, and couldn't believe he would truly trust her. But he interrupted her moment of joy to tell her there was something he had wanted to say to her for a while. While the students were whispering around them, he coldly asked her to let go of his hand. She then realized she had been holding his hand the entire time, which made her feel extremely embarrassed, especially with the system window appearing, stating that her bad reputation was increasing. She apologized to him immediately, but the system window showed that she had intentionally tightened her grip on his hand, making her scream internally with embarrassment. The next morning, she woke up knowing that Mr. Yuihyun had an early schedule and expected the brothers were still asleep. She resolved to go to school alone to avoid more embarrassing situations. She remembered what happened the day before and how she held Dokyeom's hand in front of the whole school because of her intense tension while thinking about saving his father. She decided to stay away from him for a few days at least while going to school, hoping the students would forget the incident. As she ate her breakfast, she noticed the mansion was suspiciously quiet. She wondered why she didn't see any of the uncles from the organization men who always greeted her. She felt something strange, and when she looked into the house lobby, she found it completely empty. She felt a strange sensation today, and red warning lights began flashing before her eyes. Her vision was filled with red warning windows, preventing her from entering the danger zone, threatening her with punishment. A huge death countdown appeared, specifically for her as a supporting character. She was shocked by the sudden sounds and warnings. Terror seized her as she wondered if she was going to die. She realized she would die a gruesome death even before she could protect Mr. Yui-hyun. She rejected this fate and tried to escape, deciding to leave the place first. But a mysterious hand grabbed her from behind, and she realized the spy's target had changed and become her. She screamed in extreme terror as she fell to her knees. She wondered in despair why this was happening to her, while a voice was calling her name. She raised her head to find Dokyeom standing before her, asking anxiously if she was okay. She looked at him in a state of shock, barely speaking his name. When Dokyeom appeared before her, all the red warnings vanished, and the system window announced that the kill threat was canceled and the safety state was secured. Yihai admitted to herself that her mind had completely frozen at that moment, and she couldn't explain what happened clearly. Instead of explaining the situation, she burst into heavy crying, affected by fear and shock. Dokyeom asked her anxiously why she was crying. He sighed, then embraced her gently to calm her down. His appearance at that moment was a very welcome one for her. After she calmed down a bit, he asked her to raise her head, so she did. She thanked him for calming her and asked him if he felt confused while she was thinking about how to explain this complicated situation. He asked her sharply what had just happened and the reason for all this panic. She tried to evade his question, claiming she was a bit sensitive because her health condition wasn't good and that she hadn't seen anyone. She justified her scream by saying she was surprised when he grabbed her from behind and that she was originally a cowardly person, but she couldn't tell him the truth, that sirens were wailing in her ears announcing she would die soon. He suggested she rest from school today, but she refused strongly, insisting she could go. She asked him enthusiastically to go to school together. She was afraid she might actually die if she stayed home alone. Dokyeom agreed to her request and extended his hand to her. He told her they would be late if they continued like this and asked her to hold his hand. His action surprised his brother, while she was thinking it would have been better to go by car on a day like this. He noticed her moving away from him, so he asked her why and told her to stick to him. Dokyeom's brother saw them and mocked him, wondering if he had fallen into the honey trap set by Yihai. Dokyeom answered, calmly, that she was sick. This answer sparked Yul's interest, who wondered in amazement if she was truly sick. Yihai answered in the affirmative. Yul suggested that if she was sick, she should rest at home, and that he would also be late if they walked slowly. Then he dashed off. After Yul left, they remained alone in silence for a moment. Dokyeom asked her about her physical condition, and she told him she was fine except for feeling slightly dizzy. He asked her again if there was something she wanted to tell him, pointing out that she looked truly terrified earlier. Yihai realized he possessed a sharp intelligence and keen observation. She tried to evade his question and asked him to let her walk like this until the school gate. He agreed to her request and told her to tell him later if there was something she wanted to say. She walked beside him holding his arm, amazed at herself. Moments ago, she was thinking of going alone, and now she was clinging to him. She admitted to herself she had no other choice. For some reason, she felt safe when she was beside him. After returning home, she lay on her bed feeling exhausted. She had spent her whole day in fear of sudden death. In physical education class, one of her classmates warned her to avoid a volleyball headed toward her. She realized that getting hit by this ball might cause her at least a brain concussion. She tried to avoid it, but her feet froze in place. Yihai closed her eyes, preparing to take the hit, realizing it was over. But Dokyeom suddenly appeared and took the ball instead of her, saving her at the last moment. She stood stunned, wondering where Dokyeom had appeared from so quickly. Later, as she went up the stairs at school, she faced her second sudden death crisis while she was late for her class. She slipped on the wet stairs and almost fell, but a strong hand grabbed her and prevented her from falling, warning her to be more careful. It was Dokyeom who saved her again, and he scolded her for her neglect, advising her to leave early if she was going to remain this careless. In her room later, she sat on her bed thinking that she was still alive thanks to Dokyeom, but she wondered why the warning window didn't appear at school, and whether the kill threat only appeared inside the house. She felt a sharp headache and realized she must preserve her life first, wondering if she should make Dokyeom her bodyguard. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door, and she wondered if the knocker was Dokyeom. She opened the door to find team leader Cha Yi-ryung, who apologized for her sudden visit. Yihai asked her the reason for her visit, and she replied that she came at the request of Mr. Yui-hyun. Yihai welcomed her warmly and invited her in, but as soon as she entered, Ms. Cha's features changed into an evil smile. and she thanked her. In a moment, Yihai's vision was again filled with red warnings filling the place. A stark warning appeared, giving her only 10 seconds to escape, or she would be killed immediately. Ms. Cha stood before the door, while Yihai looked in horror at the system window that revealed Ms. Cha was the spy. Ms. Cha entered the room and asked for a moment of her time. Suddenly, Yihai dashed toward the door and pushed Ms. Cha hard, while Yihai realized in shock that Team Leader Cha was the spy she had been looking for. Yihai screamed while trying to escape, as the death counter decreased rapidly. Dokyeom heard her scream and immediately felt that danger was lurking. He dashed toward her room calling her name. He reached her at the last moment and asked anxiously what was happening. Yihai threw herself into his arms. And at that moment, a notification appeared stating that the warning was lifted. Dokyeom asked her to raise her head. At that moment, Ms. Cha appeared with a calm smile, greeting Dokyeom. Dokyeom returned the greeting in confusion while still holding the trembling Yihai. Ms. Cha noticed that Yihai looked strange and asked her if something had happened, claiming she got worried when she heard her scream. She wondered anxiously what was wrong with her and if she was okay, while Yihai clung to Dokyeom's shirt in terror. Yihai hesitated and wondered if she should scream and reveal that Ms. Cha was the spy, but she feared that would worsen the situation. Dokyeom noticed her trembling, while his gaze exchanged with Ms. Cha's sharp gaze. Ms. Cha expressed her relief at the young master's presence, then announced she would leave first. She turned to leave, waving a farewell. After her departure, Dokyeom wondered in a whisper if Team Leader Cha was truly the spy. Yihai was surprised by his question. He told her that what happened this morning had repeated again, and asked her if she was afraid because of Ms. Cha's presence. Yihai felt confused and didn't know if she should tell him the truth. Ms. Cha, like Mr. O, is a figure close to the family. She remembered what Dokyeom said earlier about Ms. Cha, and how she was there to support their family in the hardest times, and that his father holds her in high regard. She feared that if she accused someone everyone valued, she would be the one who looked suspicious, especially since she was just a guest who hadn't been there long. But she remembered his request to trust him, and that he promised to believe her. She remembered his words that he would trust her, which gave her courage. She gathered her strength and decided to tell him the truth. She told him directly that Team Leader Cha was the spy, confident that Dokyeom would believe her. In another scene, Ms. Cha was driving her car at night with calm features. She recalled one of her memories when she was sitting in front of a shrine, where she sat before pictures of her deceased parents, wondering what she would do if she remained alone. She broke down in tears, refusing to believe that their death was just an accident. A mysterious man appeared from behind her and asked her if she wanted to know the truth, confirming she was smart and quick-witted. He asked her if she wanted to know the person who killed her parents. He revealed to her that the killer was Seo Yuihyun, the person she must take revenge on. After this memory, Ms. Cha received a phone call and answered it calmly. She told the caller she would go see him now. Meanwhile, Yul was returning to the mansion, surprised by the servants welcoming him so late. He grumbled about the length of the academic counseling at school and that he would move to the same school anyway. He glimpsed Yihai running at the top of the stairs and called her, wondering why she was so tense. Dokyeom appeared behind her, so Yul was surprised they were together and told his brother he was in a counseling session with the teacher, so he came back late. He asked Yul about his father and if he had left for work yet. Dokyeom told Yihai that Mr. O informed him over the phone that he was in a staff meeting, and Yihai suggested they go directly to his company. Dokyeom tried to calm her, confirming that Mr. O and the rest of the members always accompany his father. Meanwhile, Mr. O stepped in, wondering why they were going there. When Yihai reached the bottom of the stairs, she quickly approached Mr. O to ask him about Mr. Yuihyun and if he had left with him. He answered that this was the plan originally, but urgent matters appeared that required discussion with Team Leader Cha, and that the president asked them to move forward because it might take time. Yihai was shocked, and Dokyeom clearly remembered that Ms. Cha told him today's schedule was dedicated to another department. Confusion appeared on Mr. O's face as he tried to justify the situation, saying it was an emergency and unplanned schedule. Yul wondered anxiously about the reason for all this fuss, believing that his father's meeting with Team Leader Cha shouldn't be a problem. But Dokyeom asked his brother Yul to stay home and eat, which sparked his brother's surprise. He refused to eat in this tense situation. Dokyeom turned to Mr. O and asked him to go to the company immediately. Then Dokyeom tried to prevent Yihai from going, but she refused, saying she didn't want to wait idly. She grabbed his hand firmly, confirming she didn't want to wait at home. She announced she would go with him, and Yul joined them, demanding to go as well, while the guards were trying to prevent them. The guards stopped Dokyeom and asked him to wait. Yihai shouted at the guards that there was no time and that they must go to Mr. Yuihyun immediately, but they refused to believe her without accurate information. At that critical moment, Dokyeom stepped in and announced he trusted her. The guards hesitated for a moment, but Dokyeom confirmed his decision and set off with Yihai. He grabbed her hand and they rushed out of the house toward his father. They set off in a convoy of cars across the city bridge at night, while Yihai was reassuring herself that Mr. Yui Hyun was still fine as long as no special system window appeared. But a system window suddenly appeared, indicating that Dokyam noticed her abnormal behavior. He asked her anxiously if she was worried. She admitted to herself that she should have chased them immediately after Ms. Cha left, and that she feared something would happen if the situation continued like this. Dokyam tried to calm her, confirming his father was much stronger than she thought and that he would be okay. But Yul suddenly shouted, wondering what if he wasn't okay. Yul was trembling with fear in the front seat, realizing that if Ms. Cha were truly a spy, his father was in real danger. Dokyam tried to calm his brother, who reminded him that the opponent this time was Ms. Cha herself. Dokyam reassured them that nothing would happen, but Yul was determined to ensure no harm occurred at all. In another scene, Ms. Cha was standing before Mr. Yui Hyun in a locked office. He asked her about the important matter and ordered her to speak first. She told him to stop pretending to be a rational person and to get straight to the point. She confronted him directly, asking him why he killed her parents. Confusion appeared on his face, and he asked her to explain what she was saying so he could understand. She mocked his request, then recalled a memory from the past, where a child claiming to be the daughter of director Cha Jun-hyuk arrived at the mansion. That child was Cha Yi-ryong in her youth, who asked Mr. Yui-hyun to take her in because she had no place left to go. Yui-hyun remembered she was the daughter of director Cha, whom he knew as a member of the Baek Young-ju group. She confirmed to him that she hated that group and that she wanted to become a member of the Yui-hyun family. Ms. Cha clarified in her memories that she became alone after her parents were sacrificed for the personal gain of one of the members. She exploded in anger at Mr. Lee-hyum, accusing him of laughing at her all these years and pretending to know nothing, demanding that he stop this detestable acting. She attacked him with a knife while screaming, demanding an answer as to why he killed her parents. Meanwhile, they arrived at the company building only to find the security guard preventing them from entering, claiming that entry was forbidden to strangers. Dokyun tried to convince him that they were the CEO's family and were in a hurry, but to no avail. Mr. O suddenly appeared and asked the guard to step aside. He showed his ID card, explaining that they were the CEO's children and he was their bodyguard, and that they were here because of an emergency call. After they entered, Dokyun began setting the plan, explaining that the potential locations for his father were the meeting room on the 3rd floor, the grand conference hall on the 10th floor, or his personal office. He pointed out that if a large force moved all at once, the spy might notice and escape. He decided to limit the raid to a minimum number of individuals, while the rest of the force moved with a time delay, then asked Yihai if she understood the plan. She nodded in agreement, and the men began to move quickly. Mr. O ordered his men to call immediately as soon as the chairman was found. Yihai and Dokyun reached one of the doors, and Dokyun approached her. He was surprised by her ability to keep up with his speed and commented on her good physical fitness. She replied that she survived only because their destination was the 3rd floor. When they reached the office, they were shocked by the scene before them. The scene shifts to moments before their arrival. Mr. Lee-hyum was sitting on the floor injured while blocking Ms. Cha's knife with his bare hand. Ms. Cha kept trying to release the knife from his hand, but she couldn't. Lee-hyum asked her sarcastically if she was truly convinced that he was her parents' killer after all these years she spent with him, but she insisted that there was no one else who could be the killer, as he was the only rival to her parents in the past. Lee-hyum challenged her logic, telling her to stab him if she was sure of it. He then added that he would give her one last chance. Ms. Cha hesitated for moments while he looked at her defiantly. At that moment, Yihai burst into the room screaming Mr. Lee-hyum's name. Dokyun shouted for his father, while Yihai sat beside him, reassuring herself that he was still alive as long as the mission failure window did not appear. The window did not indeed appear, confirming to her that he survived. She heard a sound and a blue system window appeared announcing, "Main mission accomplished," and that Mr. Lee-hyum's survival was 100% guaranteed. She was surprised when Lee-hyum told her he wasn't seriously hurt thanks to her training, and another notification appeared stating that his affection had increased by 10 points. Lee-hyum smiled, wondering if his agility had truly increased. Another system window appeared revealing a hidden benefit, which was an additional 40-point increase in Lee-hyum's affection, along with Lee-hyum's smile. Yihai hugged Mr. Lee-hyum with overwhelming happiness, expressing her relief at his survival, and he thanked her kindly. Dokyun watched the situation in confusion, wondering through which exit Ms. Cha had escaped. He tried to intervene, telling his father that but his father interrupted him, asking him to leave the girl alone. Mr. Lee-hyum embraced Yihai while asking his son to leave her in peace. At that moment, Yul arrived with Mr. O and his men, screaming for his father in a state of panic. Dokyun sighed in relief, while Mr. Lee-hyum patted the back of Yi-hai, who was still hugging him. After the men arrived, one of them reported that they had found the chairman. In her car, Ms. Cha was cursing her luck, while someone else was trying to call her, but she wasn't answering her phone. The man who was misleading her blamed her for failing such a simple mission. He grabbed a file containing information and a picture of Yi-hai. The man looked at the file while Yi-hai was hugging Mr. Lee-hyum, thinking that she had become part of the family. Later, Mr. O was apologizing to his boss, admitting that he had no idea about this betrayal happening under their noses. He declared that he was unfit for his service and that he would take full responsibility and accept punishment. He emphasized that he would accept his judgment even if he decided to fire him immediately. He and his men bowed, apologizing profusely and admitting they had no excuse. But Mr. Lee-hyum rejected their apology, asserting that the burden of this incident lay on him. He remembered how he gave Ms. Cha a chance, and how she dropped the blood-stained knife. Ms. Cha sighed, wondering if he knew something, adding that people always create regret out of emotional attachment. She admitted that the time she spent with him had turned into poison for her, and that she was certain he was her parents' killer. But she now realized the truth and offered him to find her and kill her if he wished. She told him tearfully to do as he pleased. The scene returns to the present. Lee-hyum says to himself that he will not hold her responsible for what happened today. However, he warned her that using her shame as an excuse to leave the organization is an even greater crime. He ordered his men to prevent any internal conflict and to conduct individual security checks on all members to ensure that what happened would not be repeated. Then he ordered them to track Ms. Cha's movements, but without engaging her, and to inform him immediately upon finding her. Finally, he emphasized the need to pay extra attention to protecting his children and Yi-hai, which his men agreed to. The next day, Mr. O bowed before Yi-hai, apologizing profusely. He admitted that he had misjudged her and suspected she was a spy all this time, asking her to forgive him. Yi-hai was surprised by his apology and tried to calm him down, assuring him that it was fine and that anyone would have made the same mistake, asking him to raise his head. She then realized that the reason for his intimidating behavior toward her was to protect Mr. Lee-hyum, and she felt happy that they were on the same side all along. He asked her if she truly forgave him. Yi-hai was surprised by how much his way of dealing with her had changed. Yi-hai kindly expressed her understanding of Secretary O's position, emphasizing that she was not angry with him, but rather appreciated their shared desire to protect Mr. Lee-hyum. She praised Secretary O's role, noting that his timely intervention saved Lee-hyum before it was too late. Yi-hai felt deeply grateful and found no reason for anger, instead expressing her deep thanks to Secretary O and the SEO family's dedication to protecting her. Secretary O was moved by her kind words and pledged that he would never doubt her intentions again. Amidst an atmosphere of friendliness and mutual appreciation, Yul expressed his relief that the crisis had ended and things were back to normal, while Yi-hai watched him with a hidden smile reflecting her happiness at this transformation. Secretary O wondered about the words Yul had uttered recently. Yul repeated his explicit confession that he was extremely happy his father survived. Despite his features trying to remain stoic, Yul admitted his gratitude to Yi-hai, explaining that this did not mean his complete acceptance of her presence, but he couldn't help but appreciate what she did for his father. Yi-hai was shocked by this sudden and positive change in Yul's attitude, who had always been hostile toward her. Yi-hai teased Yul, calling him a cute boy, which caused Yul to blush as he denied crying out of relief, while Yi-hai continued to tease him by asking him to call her older sister. Dokyun watched these gentle bickerings silently, while Yi-hai noticed his calmness and thought about the complexity of his personality and the difficulty of predicting his reactions. Later, in the quiet of her room, Yi-hai lay on her bed feeling deep satisfaction. Her mission had been crowned with success, ensuring a long and safe life for Mr. Lee-hyum. She celebrated inwardly her ability to change fundamental events in the story and felt the SEO family's gratitude overwhelming her from every side. Questions haunted her about whether this success paved the way for her imminent return to her real world, and she felt a pang of sadness at the thought of leaving this luxury and opulence she had grown accustomed to. However, she sincerely realized that she hadn't felt lonely for a single moment since she set foot in this new world. She suddenly got up from her bed and summoned the system window, determined to get satisfying answers to the many mysteries surrounding her existence. The window responded to her call and revealed new and shocking information regarding the true identity of Cha Yi-ryong. Yi-hai initially wondered about the utility of knowing these details now after things had settled, but her curiosity got the better of her and she began reading. She was stunned to learn that Ms. Cha was a field leader in the Baekhyun gang. And even worse, Yi-hai's personal data had become completely exposed to the leader of that gang. The name Baekhyun gang puzzled her, as she didn't remember hearing this name in the original game, making her realize that the rules of the world she lived in had changed. The system explained that her situation had become sensitive before the leader of a second-tier gang, and despite her passing anxiety, she reassured herself that Mr. Ehyom's survival would protect her from a tragic fate. Yihai concluded that the chances of being directly targeted had become almost non-existent given the heavy protection she now enjoys. She was hit by a fit of anger at the sudden disappearance of the system window without answering the rest of her urgent questions, describing it as an unstable window. She sighed deeply and decided to go to sleep, determined to enjoy the peace she had achieved after long hardship. But the sudden knocking on her door interrupted her train of thought, and Dokyun entered, asking her in a calm tone if she was still awake. Dokyun entered the room carrying his pillow and blanket. She asked him in utter shock what he intended to do at such a time. Dokyun lay on the floor comfortably, declaring with total coldness that he was preparing to sleep in her room. His words hit her like a lightning bolt when he confirmed that he would sleep directly beside her to protect her. Yihai's cheeks flushed with embarrassment and confusion, and she screamed, denouncing this bold and unexpected situation. Dokyun justified his insistence that if she hadn't screamed in the previous incident, he might have been late in saving her, so he decided to provide close protection for her throughout the night to ensure her safety. Yihai exploded in anger, calling him a naughty son, and asked indignantly why he was guarding her while it was his father who was injured. But he answered her with coldness and steadfastness that his father would surely understand the necessity of this measure. She confronted him, leaning on her arms above him, reminding him of an obvious fact. She is a woman, and he is a man, asking if he realized that. He answered calmly that he knew, then turned to give her his back, warning her not to worry, and that if she tried to make any suspicious move, he would finish her off in the blink of an eye. While he was asking her to go to sleep, she sat on her bed in a state of resentment, calling him a crazy bastard in her mind. In a fit of rage, she turned off the lights, convincing herself that there was no reason to prevent them from sharing the room, declaring that she didn't care whether he slept well or not. She lay on her bed, sleep having completely deserted her, grumbling about the idea of his alleged protection, as he is ultimately just a gangster. She admitted to herself that even if this was just a game world, and she was a possessed character, she now saw him as a real and living man, making the situation even more complicated. He called her quietly, and she answered him sharply. He then asked her how she knew about Ms. Cha being a spy. She was surprised by his question. He clarified that he hadn't suspected her at all. He recalled a scene from the past when his father offered a young girl named Yiryong to stay in a separate house belonging to them so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. At that moment, Dokyun appeared as a small child, calling his father enthusiastically. His father carried him, and the child asked about the identity of that older sister, so he told him it was Cha Yiryong, and that she had become part of their family now. Little Dokyun greeted her, and she responded to him with hesitation and confusion. Returning to the present, Dokyun explained that team leader Cha had been with their family for a very long time and was dear to them. Yihai realized that those most affected by this incident were his father and the entire family. He suddenly asked Yihai how she knew Ms. Cha was a spy, and she was puzzled for a moment before brilliantly claiming that she had a very sharp intuition. She continued making up excuses, explaining that she had felt something strange since the morning that made her alert, and that's how she was able to uncover the truth about team leader Cha. He suggested sarcastically that at this rate, she should join the organization, but she rejected his request flatly and immediately. She turned the question back on him, wondering why he was so interested in her, and if this treatment was exaggerated just for being a guest. He answered with a serious look that she was not an ordinary guest at all, but rather a demanding and troublesome one. He sighed and added that he was happy she knew that, which made her feel annoyed at her inability to refute his words. She thought to herself that Seo Dokyun definitely has a weakness for rookie gangsters, and that the existence of a gangster with such tenderness is a rare thing likely limited only to him. She continued to wonder why he was so deeply interested in her, while he was also wondering in silence, admitting it was a valid question, and questioning the real reason that drives him to do all this. And just as she was about to sleep, she began to sink into a dark nightmare. She found herself a little girl locked in a pitch-black place. The place was hot and suffocating, and intense terror had taken hold of her. She began to plead desperately, asking anyone to get her out of this terrible place. She suddenly woke up panting, realizing that what happened was just a dream. She wondered if these dreams were haunting her because of the trauma caused by the Cha Yiryong incident, especially since those memories had begun to fade long ago. While she was thinking about how terrifying the situation was at that time, she turned only to be surprised by his presence. She was shocked and terrified when she found him sleeping peacefully on the floor beside her bed, and wondered in horror why he was here. She woke up to find herself on the floor beside his bed, realizing in confusion that she must have rolled off her bed during her nightmare. She looked at him as he was in a deep sleep, wondering to herself if it was right for someone tasked with guarding her all night to sleep this deeply. She continued to contemplate him, thinking about how innocent and calm he looked, unfitting for a rookie gangster. to the point she imagined that if someone tried to kidnap her, he wouldn't even realize it. Remembering that he was actually kind-hearted, she wondered if he would grow up normally now that the reason that would have driven him into the criminal world was gone. She was possessed by the idea that perhaps he could now live a normal love story with the original heroine of the story and have a happy ending. She continued to think that this heroine would be Ye On-sol. At that time, Mr. Lee-hyum was reading a newspaper when Secretary Oh informed him that Dokyun and Yi-hae were spending the night together in the same room. The secretary explained that he checked because Dokyun wasn't in his room. This news came as a shock to Yul, who was having his breakfast at that moment. But Mr. Lee-hyum handled the matter calmly, considering there was no problem as long as they would be getting engaged anyway, then asked the secretary to send his son to his office, which shocked Yul. Yul confronted his father angrily, asking if he was still serious about the engagement, protesting that only 2 months had passed since Yi-hae's arrival. His father scolded him calmly, emphasizing that there was no reason to raise his voice and that it could happen at any time as long as Dokyun and Yi-hae agreed. Yul exploded in anger, asking why his opinion wasn't also taken into account. His father explained that the opinion of those concerned was what mattered most. So Yul was overcome by a feeling of jealousy, thinking that his father had always put Yi-hae first since her arrival. Despite his admission of the great favor she had done for them, he couldn't hide his intense hatred for the idea of his father listening to her before him. He decided to withdraw from the table, claiming he didn't feel well and would eat later. Mr. Lee-hyum wondered if he had said something wrong, so the secretary explained that the second young master must be worried about his brother's engagement. Mr. Lee-hyum showed understanding but decided he needed to retrain Dokyun on the rules of etiquette. While Yi-hae's naivety could be understood, his son should not act like her. The secretary pointed out that credit goes to Yi-hae for improving the atmosphere of the mansion, which was no longer gloomy even after the Ms. Cha incident. Mr. Lee-hyum agreed and ordered him to make the necessary arrangements. In the meantime, Mr. Lee-hyum was thinking that she was like a little lucky charm for them. Days passed and life returned to normal faster than expected after the Ms. Cha incident. Naturally, security measures became stricter, and she gained a kind of respect among the organization members for being the one who saved the leader with her intuition. As the summer vacation ended, she noticed that Dokyun had started taking care of her more explicitly. When she asked him while holding his hand why he was holding it, he coolly reminded her that she was the one who initiated holding his hand first. As for Yul, he stopped starting childish quarrels with her. When she teased him about going to study during the break, he snapped at her to mind her own business. She realized he hadn't fully opened his heart to her yet, and although her words were in jest, she decided she should be the understanding party in this relationship. She noticed that the system window began updating information about the Baekhyung gang, but she reassured herself that things would be fine as long as there was no new news. One day, she was helping Dokyun with his studies and asked him to focus and review all the mistakes he had made. She reminded him that his father was the one who asked her to do so he must work hard. She felt satisfied that her previous experience as a private tutor was beginning to bear fruit. She was possessed by the idea that if she could make him focus on his studies, maybe he could think of a future other than the gangster world. With the sounds of cicadas filling the air, she commented that summer had reached its peak and the weather had become very hot recently. Dokyun suggested increasing the cooling power of the air conditioner, but she replied with a cheerful smile, asserting that the room temperature was perfectly fine. She commented on how spacious and pleasantly cool the place was. While enjoying that atmosphere, she admitted that in the past she used to hate the summer season and feared it deeply. Her confession piqued Dokyun's curiosity, and he asked her about the reason for her fear. She tried to dodge the answer at first, explaining it was just a story from her childhood and she was fine now, but he insisted on knowing more. She hesitated for a moment, thinking this story belonged to her real world, but finally decided to share it with him, justifying to herself that no one else knew her in this world, so it was okay to tell him. She revealed to him that she was kidnapped when she was very young, and the kidnapper locked her in a cramped closet in the middle of summer. She described to him how the place was suffocating and damp due to the intense heat and tightness, and how the difficulty of breathing in that dark place made her feel a real terror that she might die. She ended her story with a forced laugh, explaining that that moment was so terrifying, it became the only scene that comes to mind when thinking of summer, and that she had forgotten everything else. But her talk was suddenly cut short when she noticed his strange reaction. He seemed deeply affected. He began to pant with difficulty and clutch his chest in pain and called her name. She was shocked by his sudden state and asked him to look at her and calm down, wondering what had happened to him, asking for help. He told her while still panting that he was deeply moved while listening to her story, making her wonder in confusion if she had told it with excessive emotional immersion. And she thought about calling Mr. O for help, but he stopped her, asking her to stay with him. and reminded her of what he had done for her in a similar situation. She immediately remembered that moment. She recalled how, when she had a panic attack, he held her and calmed her down without asking any questions. She realized what she had to do, so she hugged him gently, considering that doing such a thing was not difficult at all. After some time, he was lying with his head on her lap in a deep sleep. She asked him if he felt better. She was amazed by his ability to relax and sleep so quickly after being on the verge of death moments ago, but she began to feel that her leg had gone numb. Suddenly, he called her name while asleep, then whispered angry words, wondering if he should find that bastard. She was surprised by his words and wondered who he meant. Was it the kidnapper who locked her up? She explained to him calmly that the kidnapper had been caught long ago and no longer existed in this world. But he continued to rave in his sleep, asserting that if he were in his place, he would have killed him already, making her realize with shock that he was talking very violently. She then realized that he was getting angry on her behalf after hearing her painful story. She looked at him and thought to herself that this is the feeling of opening one's heart to another person. This moment was interrupted by Yule's sudden entry, accusing her of trying to do something to his brother while he was asleep, but she calmly denied it. Yule insisted on his accusations, describing what she was doing as a honey trap to seduce his innocent brother, but their noise woke Dokyun from his sleep. Mr. Lee-hyum noticed how close the two young people were, so he suggested to Mr. Oh that everyone go to the beach the next day. The secretary agreed immediately and confirmed he would make the necessary preparations. Later, while Yule was thinking about having ramen for dinner, Yihai suddenly appeared and asked if he was looking for it. Yule found Yihai in the kitchen standing in front of the stove, so he asked her what she was doing. She sarcastically replied if he couldn't tell what she was doing just by looking at her. She proudly announced that today she would be the skilled ramen chef. Yule scoffed at her words, doubting her ability to make it taste great. She didn't care about his comment and told him that if he didn't want to eat anything, she would eat quickly to start packing her bags. Her talk about packing bags piqued his curiosity, and he asked her about her destination. She revealed to him a plan he was unaware of, that they would all go to the beach the next day. His father, him, her, and even Mr. O. The news came as a shock to him, and he asked with anger and indignation why he was hearing this news from her first. She explained to him calmly that the reason was his angry departure earlier, which made him miss the chance to talk to his father. But he refused to believe her, and directly accused her of being the one who asked his father to go to the beach. She continued to provoke him, wondering if he hated the idea that much just because she was the one who suggested it, then challenged him sarcastically to do something about it. He shouted at her, asking her to stop joking. He grabbed her shoulders violently while shaking her, asking if she was doing this on purpose. He continued to shake her while demanding a quick and honest answer, refusing to believe that such a family trip had been planned without his knowledge. She asked him to stop shaking her, emphasizing that she didn't have the power to make such a decision on her own. He justified his outburst by saying that his father had become more interested in her than him since she came to the house. In the midst of this argument, while he was distracted, her hand slipped from the handle of the hot pot and she screamed in pain. Boiling water spilled from the pot, and in an instinctive reaction, she pushed him away from her to receive all the hot water on her own back. She fell to the ground screaming in intense pain, with burn marks clearly visible on her back. Yule looked at her burnt back in a state of terror and shock, and called her name hesitantly before screaming her name. At that moment, a red system window appeared before her, announcing her success in a hidden mission, which was preventing Seo Yule's death. In another part of the mansion, Dokyun was looking for her, wondering about her whereabouts while thinking that he had rented an entire department store for her. A faint sound of crying led him to the scene of the accident, only to find his brother Yule collapsed and crying bitterly. He rushed toward him with concern and asked him what happened. Yule called him with a wavering voice. Yule explained while trembling that he had accidentally spilled boiling water, and that Yihai had protected him with her body. He added that he put an ice pack on her back as first aid. Dokyun took the initiative and ordered Yule in a firm tone to call someone, declaring they would go to the hospital immediately. Yule agreed at once while Yihai was trying to suppress her crying. While Yule was rushing off to execute the order, Yihai noticed Yule's pained features and asked him not to cry. Dokyun sat beside her and held her gently, asking her not to move and to lean on his shoulder. Then he asked her in an angry and pained tone why she had done that. She answered him while in pain that she didn't even think, and that her body moved on its own because he is his younger brother. A sob overcame her, and he looked at her silently. Another system window appeared announcing that the little gangster Seo Dokyun is deeply shaken, while she was trying to suppress her tears and prevent herself from crying. He noticed she was biting her lips hard, so he warned her she would hurt herself, and suggested she bite his finger instead if it was painful. She was stunned by his request, and thought to herself that he was completely crazy, and that he was treating her like a small child. She bit his finger gently, still thinking he was overreacting and that his tenderness was excessive. Secretary O arrived rushing and calling her name, and told his men to move her to the president's car and help her immediately. While being moved, Do-kyun whispered in her ear that she had endured well, making her think that she might get used to this kindness if the situation continued this way. In the mansion, Mr. Oh was standing beside Yul, who was sitting in shock, and called him quietly, "Young master." Yul tried to pull himself together and asked the secretary not to worry about him and to go check on Yihai. Secretary Oh reassured him that she had already gone to the hospital accompanied by the president, so there was no need to worry. He added that the president had asked him to stay beside Yul and calm him. Yul wondered why his father cared about him and stammered his words while calling the secretary Uncle. The secretary replied with a reassuring smile and assured him she would be perfectly fine. Yul burst into tears, wondering angrily why she protected him, as he was only venting his frustration on her because he thought his father cared for her more than him. The secretary placed his hand on his shoulder to comfort him, wondering if he had lost his mind. Yul continued crying bitterly, considering it would have been better if he had been the one with the scar, but she was the one who bore the harm. Yul thought that she must be feeling devastated now. In the hospital, Yihai woke up to find herself in a comfortable bed. She realized she was in the hospital and that the treatment was so fast she didn't feel any pain. She was impressed by the luxury of the private room, commenting that even these difficult moments seem opulent. But she felt a weight on her right hand. She looked to find Do-kyun sitting beside her bed, his head resting on the bed while holding her hand. She called his name quietly. He raised his head and asked her if she had woken up. She asked him if he had stayed here the whole time. He told her she was the one who just woke him up, so she felt sorry because he didn't have to stay. Nevertheless, she noticed that as usual, he stayed by her side naturally. He told her the emergency treatment was done and she had to stay in the hospital for some time, but he apologized because the doctor told him a small scar might remain. She was surprised by his apology, emphasizing that the decision was hers, but she admitted it bothered her a little, as someone she might love later might think the scar is repulsive. He interrupted her angrily, asking her not to date someone who thought that way and that he himself would object to it. She was shocked by his words and asked him sarcastically if she now needed his permission to get a boyfriend. He answered with complete seriousness, "Of course," making her laugh and ask him if he was her father, commenting that he was acting like a real older brother. A system window appeared stating that the little gangster Seo Do-kyun is satisfied with the reaction of the supporting character Baek Yihai, so she asked him sarcastically if he was satisfied now. Suddenly, she noticed another window behind the notification and wondered what it was, as there was an unread notification. She tried to reach it, claiming she had been lying down for a long time and her arm was stiff. As soon as she managed to touch the notification, a new window appeared revealing shocking information. The little gangster Seo Do-kyun feels nauseous, and that this feeling had accumulated 17 times, with a warning against the continuation of this nausea for long periods. She was stunned by this strange and unexpected notification. Yihai remembered seeing a similar notification when they were shopping, where the system mentioned that Do-kyun felt nauseous 17 times upon seeing her. She wondered angrily if he felt nauseous every time he saw her, but she noticed that this nausea didn't seem negative. It didn't carry any hostile feelings, although the idea that he loved her seemed very unlikely. Do-kyun interrupted her thoughts, informing her she would stay in the hospital for now, and he would visit her often. She asked him enthusiastically about the beach trip, so he denounced her idea while she was in this state. She protested his strict decision, asserting she no longer felt pain and could go out, but he remained silent. He held her mouth gently, asking her to listen and act calmly, and that the beach wouldn't go anywhere. She tried to object. He prevented her from speaking and asked her not to make strange sounds. Yihai wondered angrily why he held someone else's mouth this way. Their argument was interrupted by a knock on the door and Mr. Ehyum's entry, asking if Yihai had woken up. Yihai welcomed Mr. Ehyum enthusiastically and invited him to enter. Mr. Ehyum apologized to her, admitting he had heard everything and was extremely shocked. He assured her that he was the one who should apologize and reassured her they had assigned the best medical team to care for her, so no need to worry about scars. He was surprised by her smile. She explained she was grateful for everything and felt like an honorary family member. Suddenly, Do-kyun grabbed her, which threw her into a panic. He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward him while she screamed. Mr. Ehyum wondered in confusion what had just happened. Do-kyun explained calmly that what he did was just a restraint. His strange explanation surprised Yihai, and at that moment, a series of warnings appeared from the system window, announcing that Do-kyun's abnormal condition had been activated, and his possessiveness and obsession had increased. Mr. Ehyum laughed quietly. Do-kyun explained with a serious face that he wanted to protect her to this extent, especially since she saved his brother, and that he would take special care of her. She was terrified, pleading in her mind for someone to save her. Mr. Ehyum wondered about the nature of this sudden announcement and whether this meant they would hold the engagement ceremony immediately. Shock took hold of her, and she headbutted him in the face. She tried to get away from him while protesting the idea of restraint. She asked Mr. Ehyum to let her rest a little. He agreed kindly and decided to step aside while Dokyun watched her silently. After a few days, Yihai was enjoying her time in the hospital, savoring the sweets brought to her. She found that a quiet and comfortable life in the hospital was the best of all. For while life in the mansion was luxurious, hospital life was quieter, where everything was brought to her without effort. She wished she could live like this forever. But she recently noticed she had begun to get used to receiving care and attention, which was something she could never have imagined in her real world. Yihai recalled fragmented images, from Mr. Ehyum's worried looks to Dokyun's care for her, and realized sadly that these people could not become her real family. But she soon retracted this idea, reminding herself not to overstep her bounds just because she felt comfortable with them. Her thoughts were interrupted by Dokyun's early arrival, who entered her room carrying some bags. He invited her to eat outside. They sat together in the hospital garden, and she was impressed by the delicious food he brought. She offered him to share the food, but he politely refused, explaining he didn't like spicy food. She thanked him for the water he brought. He called her name. She asked what he wanted while she was eating. He told her that Yul felt very sorry for what happened. She was surprised by this news and admitted she was a bit upset by his lack of visits, but she understood given his personality. Dokyun checked his phone to find a message from Yul telling him he would come tomorrow, but he didn't come. In fact, Yul had already reached her room door, but he hesitated and decided to withdraw quietly while she was eating with his brother. He admitted to himself that he didn't have the courage to face her yet, and that he would apologize to her later. But he was surprised by her sudden appearance behind him. She asked him about his brother's whereabouts. She told him he had left after seeing her eat, which caused him great confusion. She was dazzled by the famous cake he brought her and asked him if he was the one who bought it. She teased him, saying she didn't expect him to visit at all, wondering if his visit was a surprise. He tried to evade the situation, claiming he was just passing by. She expressed her happiness at his coming, which made him feel very shy. Earlier, Secretary O was comforting Yul, assuring him that this world is indeed cruel, but no one deserves to die or be harmed. He explained to him that emotions sometimes precede logic, and that this is what happens when one tries to save a loved one. He added that Yihai herself carries the wound of losing her family, and that's why it seems she opened her heart to this family first. Oh admitted, he found her strange at first, but now he feels grateful to her. The secretary asked Yul if he felt the same way. Yul wondered how long they had known each other, and yet she sacrificed herself for him. The secretary explained that this is what makes it a special bond. Then he told him that his father had said something too. He conveyed his father's words in which he described him as his beloved son, promising him that they would go together next year to the sea he loves. Back at the hospital, Yul knelt before Yihai, apologizing sincerely. He explained to her that because of what he did, she would carry a scar for the rest of her life, and that he felt deeply sorry. She tried to calm him, emphasizing that the treatment went well and the scar wouldn't be visible, and asked him to raise his head. But Yul thanked her for opening her heart to him despite all the reasons that drove her not to do so. Yul thanked Yihai while crying for her concern for him. Yihai hugged him warmly, asking him to stop crying, as he had only done what he had to do. Suddenly, another system window appeared, announcing her completion of a new hidden mission, winning Seo Yul's favor and making him her strongest ally. She was astonished by the appearance of this sudden mission and wondered if her protection of Yul was what triggered it, as she had thought there were no more missions left. Later, she felt grateful to the SEO family and thought that Yul had finally opened his heart to her. In a good mood, she took a photo of herself and sent it to a group chat, informing them that she was on the hospital roof. She soon received a reply from Dokyun, who scolded her for going out at night, calling it dangerous, and asked if anyone was accompanying her. He continued sending warning messages, which frightened her, but she reassured him that she was not alone and asked him to wait. She remembered the guards' insistence on preventing her from going out and how she had begged them to go out for only 10 minutes, wondering if the hospital roof was truly that dangerous. She received another message from Yul, who apologized for not being able to come but promised to talk to her often. She thought he seemed very kind. While she was enjoying the fresh air, she wondered if these missions would continue to appear, and if so, she had to set a plan. Suddenly, her hair tie fell to the ground, and a strange young man suddenly called out to her. She turned to him, and he told her with a smile that she had dropped her hair tie. She thanked him profusely, and he asked if she was also a resident at the hospital. She replied in the affirmative, and he commented that he had thought so because he had seen her in the rooftop garden before. He invited her to sit and asked for her name. She introduced herself as Baek Yihai, and he introduced himself as Kim Chang-soo. She found herself introducing herself to him without thinking and admired his outgoing personality. She thought he was a handsome and ideal young man. He apologized if he had frightened her, explaining that not many friends or relatives visit him, so he felt happy to see someone his age. She reassured him that it was fine and felt sympathy for him, realizing she knew the feeling of loneliness all too well. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a guard who told her that her time was up. She apologized to Chang-Soo and told him she had to go. She bid him farewell with a smile, confirming she would stay in the hospital for some time and suggesting they talk again if they met on the roof, out of supporting character solidarity. He waved goodbye with enthusiasm. After she left, his features completely changed. Suddenly, he took off his glasses and fake hair and thought to himself that he would wait for her here. In another scene, Chang-Soo was sitting talking to another person over the phone who asked him if he had met that kid. He replied that he had indeed met her and that she was cuter in person. Chang-Soo wondered if they truly had to perform this play with a kid like her, and the other person replied that they would only do so if he wanted to withdraw. The other person explained that the leader wanted an interesting relationship between Lee-hyum's faction and them. Chang-Soo confirmed this to him. During the phone call, Chang-Soo was looking at a file containing information about Lee-hai, thinking about the necessity of identifying her weaknesses to exploit them. Then he ordered his interlocutor to prepare for the next step as planned. Ms. Cha, on the other end of the line, asked him if he intended to proceed with his plan. He replied by asking if there was a problem. Ms. Cha warned him that if he touched a single hair of that girl, total chaos would break out. She admitted that his plan might succeed in attracting Seo Lee-hyum's attention, but it might come at a high price. She explained that Lee-hyum might pursue him himself because of this matter alone, but Chang-Soo laughed and considered that this would be fun in its own way. Ms. Cha ended the call coldly, and Chang-Soo claimed he was only joking with her. In the hospital garden, Yi-hai was sitting alone holding a tarot card. She remembered how, the previous evening, she had suggested to Chang-Soo that they read their fortunes together with these cards that her brother had bought for her and never used. Chang-Soo agreed enthusiastically and began reading the instructions quickly. While he was reading, she thought that she had intended to go with the flow until she could live independently, but something was still bothering her. She realized that the appearance of a new mission meant that saving Mr. Lee-hyum was only the beginning. She remembered Do-kyun's exaggerated reaction and realized that the effect of the abnormal condition might not have been temporary. She wondered if she was being overly sensitive, but she remembered that the hierarchy mission was hidden. Her thoughts were interrupted by Chang-Soo, who asked her to draw a card. She drew a card showing 3 wolves surrounding a dog, and she was puzzled by its meaning. Chang-Soo interpreted for her that the card says there are people around her who will not let her leave, and whether their embrace is warm or not depends on her. She felt a shiver as she thought of the Seo family and realized that this tarot card was eerily accurate. Suddenly, Yul appeared behind her and asked her about the accurate thing she was talking about. She was surprised by his presence, and he mocked her for always wandering around instead of staying in her room. She teased him and asked if he was worried about her. His face turned red with anger, and he asked if she was treating him like a child. He continued shouting that he was taller than her. He was interrupted by Do-kyun's appearance. Yul shouted, calling him brother, while Do-kyun scolded him for patting an adult man's shoulder like that. Yi-hai tried to calm the situation, claiming it was just a game between them, but Do-kyun looked at her with that same sharp gaze again. He ordered her to focus on preparing to leave the hospital the next day and to pack her bags and return directly home without stopping. He explained that his father's company general meeting would be held tomorrow, and that he and his brother had to attend from the morning. Then he asked her to come with the employees and go with them to the company, making her wonder in shock if this was a kind of future daughter-in-law training. He ordered her to wait in the lounge with them, and then they would return home together. But she tried to refuse, saying she would return alone. He grabbed her chin and reminded her that he was the one who placed the shackle on her. Another system window appeared announcing that the little gangster Seo Do-kyun's obsession level is high, and she shouted in his face in protest. Yi-hai shouted in Do-kyun's face angrily, asserting that the shackle should be placed on people like him. On her last night at the hospital, she lay on her bed thinking that she would finally get out tomorrow. She felt sorry because she hadn't been able to say goodbye to Chang-Soo, as she had looked for him that day but hadn't found him. She decided to greet him tomorrow morning, even if only briefly. She thought that he was a lonely person in this world, a feeling she knew well. While she was falling asleep, an emergency system window appeared before her, announcing the activation of a new main mission: unmask Kim Chang-Soo and discover his true identity before morning. The reward for success was obtaining Seo Lee-hyum's absolute trust and a quiet life, while failure meant activating hard mode. Another window warned her that hard mode might lead to direct death, and that this window would delete itself automatically after 3 seconds. The next morning, she had already packed her bags and was waiting for the employees to arrive to pick her up. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and noticed that the burn behind her resembled angel wings, and she thought she might claim it was a tattoo if anyone asked. One of the employees arrived to pick her up. She asked him to wait for a moment. She opened the door to give him a morning greeting, but was surprised by the quietness of the place. The man, who was a new face to her, told her he needed to pack the bags. She agreed and invited him in. She suddenly remembered she had a request and asked him if she could meet someone for a moment. She explained to him that if he was worried about her, he could accompany her. and told him the person's name was Kim Chang-soo. He agreed to her request, but as soon as he agreed, she was struck on her neck and lost consciousness. He caught her while apologizing, admitting he hadn't planned to be this cruel. He whispered to her that she would rest soon, and that he hoped she had taken the supplement prescribed for her by Team Leader Cha an hour ago. Ms. Cha suddenly appeared and apologized for her use of force, explaining that the medicine's effect was delayed. She added that she had to make sure she wouldn't escape and confirmed to him that she wasn't hurt. While Yihai was losing consciousness, she heard Ms. Cha's faint voice and realized her true nature. Chang-soo asked about the guards outside, and she told him she had drugged them temporarily. She explained that there was a guard in the warehouse and another in the bathroom, but their small number and lack of experience made it easy. She added that the process of her discharge from the hospital had been completed normally, so it didn't attract the employees' attention. Most importantly, Seo Lee-hyum is currently busy with the company's general meeting. It will take some time until he realizes that Baek Yihai has been kidnapped. Yihai felt that her body was not responding to her and that everything was strange. She felt a heaviness in her eyelids. Chang-soo whispered to her to sleep well, and that they would go together to a place a little further away. She woke up to find herself locked in a dark and suffocating place. She wondered if she was trapped again and thought she had never imagined this would happen. To her again, she wondered in tears and terror about the identity of those outside. Yihai imagined that Do-kyun had come to save her and thought she felt he would be here. She reached out her hand toward him asking for help and called his name in despair. But the scene suddenly changed, and she woke up from her dream to find herself in a moving car. Chang-soo told her she had woken up and that he hadn't woken her on purpose because she was sleeping soundly. She was astonished, and when she looked beside her, she recognized Ms. Cha and realized that the faint voice she had heard was indeed hers. She tried to escape quickly, but Ms. Cha grabbed her and stopped her, wondering where she was going. Chang-soo intervened, suggesting to Ms. Cha that she be kinder to her this time. Yihai asked him in confusion about his identity. He asked her sarcastically if she had already forgotten him and reminded her of the memories they made together when he picked up her hair tie. He put on his glasses and smiled. She screamed in shock when she realized he was Mr. Chang-soo. Ms. Cha asked him if he was going to practice this childish acting again, which revealed to her that he was the leader. At that moment, a system window appeared revealing that her personal information had been exposed to the leader of the Baekhyung family, the second strongest faction. She faced him directly, wondering if he was Baekhyung, and he replied with a smile, "Well done." She shouted in their faces and demanded they leave her and began kicking the car seat violently. She wondered angrily what would change by kidnapping someone like her, she who had already suffered so much since she possessed this body. Chang-soo grabbed her, trying to calm her down, and reminded her that car seats are expensive. She shouted in his face that this wasn't her problem. Ms. Cha commented that her reaction was unexpected, and that she had thought she would cry as soon as she woke up. Yihai replied to her angrily, wondering if crying would change anything, and that she had almost killed her already. Ms. Cha was surprised by her statement and asked her if she had noticed the danger for a long time, expressing her disappointment. Then she asked her how she was deceived by Chang-soo, despite possessing this intuition. She answered in her mind that she felt a kind of kinship toward him. She warned them not to think she was a weak heroine who cries, and that she would tell Mr. Lee-hyum everything later. Ms. Cha asked her if she trusted Seo Lee-hyum that much. She answered with complete confidence that she trusted him. She explained that Mr. Lee-hyum does not change unless someone betrays him first, and advised them to leave her if they wanted to live. Ms. Cha felt strange and remembered that in her office, she found that Seo Lee-hyum's alibi on the day of her parents' death was clear. She wondered in confusion what she had missed. In the car, Yihai noticed she could see the sea from the window and remembered sadly that they were going to go to it together. She never imagined she would see it alone like this. Suddenly, a phone rang in the car, and Chang-soo told her that Mr. Lee-hyum was calling and asked her to answer. She wondered if she could truly answer. He reassured her to say whatever she wanted, whether she was kidnapped or who she was with, as everything was fine. Yihai wondered about the plot they were concocting, but she decided to answer the call so as not to worry them more. She answered the phone and called Mr. Lee-hyum. He asked her anxiously if she was okay. She held back her tears with difficulty and ordered herself not to cry. She tried to reassure him that she was fine and told him that Ms. Cha and Baek Young were beside her, apologizing for her sudden kidnapping. He, in turn, reassured her not to worry, confirming that they were tracking her location and following her closely, and asked her to endure a little. He apologized to her, so she was surprised by his apology, and told him she felt sorry because she was now at the sea, the place they were supposed to go together. He promised her that they would definitely go together next year. She agreed while trying to suppress her tears, which eventually overcame her. She heard Do-kyun's voice on the phone asking to talk to her for a moment. He called her name and vowed that as soon as he caught sight of her, he would carry her and save her immediately. He added in a firm tone that after that, there would be no use in her asking him to let her go. She was stunned by his words and wondered if he meant he would save her or that he would kill her with his own hands. In a fit of panic, she began screaming and asking them to take her anywhere far away, and that she wanted to escape. In another car, Do-kyun was listening to his father confirming that Yihai was with Cha Yi-ryong and Baek-young. Do-kyun wondered angrily why they targeted Yihai specifically. His father answered him that since she entered this world, it had become inevitable that someone dear to him would be threatened. Do-kyun remembered that inevitability with sadness and asserted that he did not want to lose anyone else for that reason. His brother agreed with him. Mr. Lee-hyum confirmed that he felt the same way, and that the only thing he was sure of was that they wouldn't dare touch Yihai. Do-kyun asserted that if they did, he would bury them all. Elsewhere, the kidnappers reached a container port, and Chang-soo decided this place was suitable. Yihai was thrown forcefully inside one of the containers, and Ms. Cha apologized to her, explaining that the place would be a bit hot. Yihai tried to prevent them from closing the door. She begged them to leave her outside, asserting that she wouldn't escape and that she suffered from claustrophobia. The container was closed on her, and she felt she was truly going to die. She began knocking on the door violently, screaming that she wasn't lying and that she was truly going to die. She felt dizzy and realized that her painful childhood memories hadn't been forgotten yet. She wished she hadn't gotten involved with that bastard from the start. A red warning window appeared, announcing that she felt a threat to her life due to a trauma attack. She thought sadly that she would see another bad ending in this ridiculous way. Suddenly, a new system window appeared, announcing a chance and a sudden mission to escape from the truck, provided she made enough noise to make Yihai feel the difficulty. Yihai denounced the system window's mockery while she was on the verge of death. The mission rewards were an increase in Baek-young's favor and obtaining Do-kyun's infinite protection, while failure meant fainting and no guarantee of survival. A random box appeared before her, offering her an escape tool if she chose a number. The options were the names of Seo family members and Baek-young, which piqued her surprise and astonishment at these choices that resembled dating games. A mysterious voice warned her to choose carefully, and that if she chose well, she might be able to meet him behind the system window. She wondered about the identity of this person talking to her from behind the system window. The voice continued to provoke her, calling her a coward, so she decided to respond to this provocation. She began thinking about whom she would choose. She ruled out Do-kyun because she imagined his terrifying threats, so she decided to choose Uncle Lee-hyum because he was the oldest and wisest. With complete confidence, she chose the second number belonging to Seo Lee-hyum. Suddenly, a pistol appeared before her. She recognized the pistol immediately. It was the same one used by the heroine Yeon's soul in one of the bad endings. She realized that giving her this pistol at this time meant one thing. She wondered if he was asking her to follow the same tragic path, but she refused this fate flatly, asserting she would never do that. She determined to stay alive no matter what. She was different from the original heroine. She grabbed the pistol and fired at the container lock, asserting that a crisis like this would not drive her to a bad ending. The force of the shot recoiled and hit her hand, but she succeeded in opening a gap in the door. She was surprised that the sound of the shot wasn't as loud as she expected. She began pushing the door hard and felt relief when it started to open, realizing she survived. She looked through the opening to check the situation outside and wondered if they had all arrived. She caught sight of the three men, Seo Lee-hyum and his two sons, standing in the port. She reassured herself that Yul would be fine, as he was just a child always in fear. But she felt anxious when she saw Do-kyun's sharp gaze and wondered if he was truly about to bury someone. She decided her priority was to get out of this place to stay alive. She planned to head toward the bridge and hide quietly, then join Do-kyun. But as soon as she got out, she was surprised by Ms. Cha watching her from inside a truck. Ms. Cha wondered in astonishment how she escaped. She commented that she was incredibly talented and didn't seem like an ordinary heroine. She decided to watch her for a little longer and let her go. Elsewhere in the port, Seo Ae-hyum was facing Baek-young and his men, and asked him what he wanted from him. Suddenly, they heard a familiar scream, which shocked Do-kyun, his father, and Baek-young. While Yihai was trying to sneak away, one of Baek-young's guards caught her and shouted in her face, asking how she got out, and ordered her to return immediately because his leader was still in the middle of a conversation. Yihai resisted the guard, who tried to force her back into the container and screamed that she didn't want to return. But suddenly, Do-kyun appeared and delivered a powerful punch to the guard, knocking him to the ground. She saw Do-kyun standing before her, so she was happy to see him and called his name, but she soon noticed she was crying. He asked her why she was crying. He stepped toward her and asked angrily what these bastards had done to her, and vowed to kill them all. She tried to calm him down, explaining it wasn't like that, and that she felt relief just by seeing him. He held her face gently and apologized to her because she felt so much fear, and she admitted to him that she was truly afraid. She added that her old trauma had returned to haunt her, so he hugged her gently and reassured her that everything was fine now. He continued to calm her down, confirming it was okay. While he was hugging her, a system window appeared stating that his obsession level had increased. Yihai thought about the mysterious system window and wondered about the identity of the person standing behind it. Elsewhere in the port, Mr. Lee-hyum was checking the bodies of Baek-young's men, commenting that they weren't as easy as he expected. He was surprised by Ms. Cha's presence in a nearby truck. Baek-young approached him, and Lee-hyum sarcastically commented that he was truly something, then invited him to talk. Lee-hyum asked, him if he felt the urge to explain and denounced his pursuit of such a childish hostage situation. He added sharply that he did it against their kid. Baek Young admitted he wanted to threaten him, or more accurately, strike a deal with him. He explained that his curiosity about how important Baek Yihai was to him was what drove him to do that. He wanted to use her as bait in their deal. Lee-hyum asked him about the terms of the deal. Baek Young asked him to give up the new headquarters project. He explained that he wanted to know how important the student Yihai was to his group and to him personally. He challenged him to prove that to him now. He offered him to give up one of his core businesses in exchange for promising not to touch Yihai again, or to ignore his demands and leave the door open for another surprise attack on her. Lee-hyum mocked him, noting that he was still arrogant even after seeing his men on the ground, but admitted he wasn't an easy opponent. Baek Young approached him and told him that if the time for their next meeting came, he would ask for his cooperation. Lee-hyum thought that Baek Young was an unpredictable man, completely different from his father, and wondered if what he offered was cooperation or a threat. Baek Young told him he could take his time thinking and that he would wait. Then he asked him to take care of himself on his way. Do-kyun suddenly appeared and grabbed Baek Young's shoulder, which was covered in blood, and told him that their talk wasn't over yet. Lee-hyum was surprised by Do-kyun's sudden appearance, but Do-kyun didn't turn to him. With a sharp look, Do-kyun vowed that Baek Young would pay dearly for what he did today. Baek Young smiled despite his injuries and asked Do-kyun not to hate him too much, explaining he never intended to hurt her from the start. Then he asked Do-kyun to take care of the student Yihai for him before he left. Meanwhile, Yihai was sleeping elsewhere. Yihai woke up to find herself in a strange and dazzling place with white light and wondered in confusion where she was. She realized she was no longer on the seashore as she had thought, and her confusion grew. Suddenly, a pink system window appeared before her carrying a smiling face and asked her if she had woken up, which shocked her. Then a mysterious girl wearing futuristic clothes appeared before her and announced that she was her, which added to Yihai's confusion. The two girls stood face to face in that digital space, and Yihai confronted her with a direct question about her identity. Suddenly, the system window announced the successful completion of the tutorial and that she had finished the introductory chapter. Yihai was shocked by the word tutorial. The mysterious girl explained that it was exactly as it seemed, and that everything she had been through so far was only an introduction. She congratulated her on surviving a very difficult section. As a reward for her success in winning the favor of the entire SEO family, and not just Seo Do-kyun, she presented her with a reward. She sarcastically praised her work in raising affection levels, admitting she hadn't expected much from her, and thought she would die quickly. Then she revealed to her her knowledge of her secret, wondering if her success was the result of all the romance simulation games she played in her previous life. Shock took hold of Yihai, and she wondered how this girl could know all this about her. But what bothered her more was the implication that she had acted strategically, and that she saw the SEO family's kindness as mere programmed values in a game. She defended herself strongly, asserting she might have acted that way in the beginning, but she had long been treating everyone with sincerity, and wondered if this was the reason they opened their hearts to her. She concluded that what she felt wasn't just a value in the system, but real feelings. But the mysterious girl responded with sarcasm and skepticism. The girl reluctantly agreed that she was sincere, but added that this matter didn't matter. She confronted her with a harsh truth. Her sincerity would not make them her real family. At this point, Yihai's patience ran out and she asked her if she was finished talking. Intense anger took hold of her, and she wondered if the girl was trying to provoke her. She exploded in anger, considering it natural to become emotionally attached to real people who interact with her directly. In a fit of rage, she directed a powerful punch toward the girl, but an energy barrier blocked it. She shouted that she already knew all this. The girl apologized, explaining she wasn't trying to provoke her. She tried to calm her and suggested they talk about it. But Yihai refused and decided to clear things up since they were face-to-face, demanding she reveal her true identity. The girl agreed to her request and promised to tell her who she was. Then the girl revealed her name was The Player, and that she had been watching her all this time. The mysterious girl who calls herself The Player revealed she doesn't just watch Yihai silently, but is also able to read her thoughts with complete clarity, which made Yihai feel stunned. The Player increased the level of surprise when she explained her ability to influence the course of missions and distribute advantages or punishments within the system, even if her control wasn't complete, which sparked Yihai's indignation. She shouted, denouncing this blatant violation of her privacy. The dialogue moved to a deeper area when The Player asked her if she wanted to know the real reason behind her being summoned to this world from the beginning. Yihai agreed with great seriousness, looking forward to hearing the answer. The Player explained that there is a desperate wish she seeks to achieve, that the story's hero reaches a true happy ending. The Player displayed a picture of the original heroine and hero in a state of happiness, which was exactly what Yihai expected, but seeing it made her feel a sudden pang of sadness. Yihai felt a weight in her chest upon hearing this, while the player approached her and told her that Yihai herself had wished for this ending while playing, and since she now possessed user power, she was the ideal person to achieve it. The player noticed the strange expression on Yihai's face and drew closer to examine her features. Suddenly, the player asked Yihai a direct and embarrassing question, wondering if she had begun to harbor feelings of admiration for Seo Dokyun, which made Yihai very confused and her face flush with embarrassment. Confusion took hold of Yihai, and she recalled moments of her closeness to Dokyun, wondering if her long feeling of loneliness was what made her mix things up and misunderstand her feelings toward him. The player warned her in a serious tone of the need to think carefully, wondering if Yihai was truly capable of going through a romantic path with a character like Seo Dokyun, even if she succeeded in opening his heart. The player continued, pointing out that Yihai's success in getting close to the family might only have been possible because she stuck to her role as a side character and didn't try to go beyond that. Yihai felt psychological pressure and asked her in a desperate tone what she wanted her to do in the face of this complexity. The player summarized the mission in a simple sentence, ensuring a happy ending for everyone, which sparked Yihai's surprise, who wondered about the nature of this ending. The player explained that the desired happy ending requires adjusting the intensity of the hero's behavior, who tends toward darkness, and displayed a picture of the hero and the original heroine before Yihai. The player admitted that Yihai's prevention of Seo Ihyom's death and the Seo Yul incident had changed many things, but she warned that Dokyun's abnormal condition had not stopped, especially concerning his growing obsession. Yihai recalled the scenes of violence Dokyun was involved in, where he appeared delivering powerful punches, which confirmed the player's fears about his aggressive nature. The player confirmed there was plenty of time before the start of the story's main scenario and demanded Yihai plan carefully, praising her effort in creating an environment that adjusts the intensity of Dokyun's personality. But the warning became darker when the player explained that ignoring the system's demands would mean certain death and that Seo Dokyun himself would end up with a miserable and very bad end. The player emphasized that Yihai's final mission was to restrain Seo Dokyun's behavior to reach a happy ending that never appeared in previous campaigns of the game. Yihai remembered how she used to envy Dokyun and Yeon-sol's love that reached the point of sacrifice, but she now realized there was no reason to escape from this new reality. Yihai felt the responsibility placed upon her toward the young Seo family members, especially Seo Dokyun with his difficult temperament. With great determination, she announced her acceptance of the challenge, affirming her sincere desire for everyone to enjoy happiness. The player praised her choice and considered it the right decision, asking her not to feel bad about it. The player promised to provide a reward that she would like later, but Yihai suddenly interrupted her and grabbed her clothes forcefully. Yihai confronted her angrily, describing her as lacking shame because she only appeared now after the uncle was saved, and the major crises were overcome on her own. Yihai continued to scold her, wondering if she was doing her job correctly in the first place as a system manager. Yihai shouted in her face, grumbling that she does nothing but mock her using her own face, while the player tried to calm her and offer a different reward. Yihai demanded immediate guarantees, emphasizing that monitoring is one thing, but reading thoughts is completely unacceptable, and ordered her to stop. The player's image began to fade and flicker as she explained that the connection had become unstable and the session would end today, while Yihai was shouting, demanding she leave some new missions or even leaks about what will happen in the future. The meeting ended with a text message from the player mimicking the sound of static, while Yihai was pursuing her angrily, demanding she return and not escape before providing satisfying answers. Yihai woke up to a voice calling her name. She opened her eyes to find Dokyun standing before her, asking if she had woken up. She called his name in confusion. She asked him where she was. He told her she was in her room and that she seemed to be having a nightmare. At that moment, Yul appeared calling her sister. She was surprised by everyone's presence. Yul and Uncle Ihyom. Yul asked her if she could sit up and offered to let her continue sleeping if she was tired. Dokyun admitted he was afraid and that he was happy she returned safely, as he was extremely worried. He placed his hand on her forehead and she thanked him. She suddenly got up, remembering what happened, and asked them about the fight they were having on the beach, as it seemed very violent. Yul reassured her not to worry about that. Yul explained that they had handled the matter, and although he wanted to intervene himself, his father and the organization's men had dealt with the situation. Mr. Ihyom sighed, admitting that what happened was entirely his fault, and that he should have protected her better, as the Baekhyung faction had planned an overt kidnapping to make an example of her. He tried to downplay the incident, describing it as just a small dispute over business, but Yihai wondered why she was targeted specifically. Mr. Ihyum revealed to her that they realized she was his own person. At that moment, a series of system windows appeared before her, announcing she would receive a reward for completing the tutorial, that Mr. Lee-hyum's favor level had reached its maximum, and that she would receive additional rewards related to the activation of family love toward her. Do-kyun explained that they knew their family wouldn't stand idly by if she was in danger, and that's why they kidnapped her. Yehai realized this was the reason and that she had become a member of this family. She asked him if this meant she was part of their family, and if this was why he was worried she would be hurt. Mr. Lee-hyum confirmed she was part of the family and under his protection. Emotions overwhelmed her, and she thought that family was something she always thought she would never have. Do-kyun asked her not to cry and promised he would make sure there would be no reason for her to cry from now on. He added that despite the lack of a blood relation between them and not spending much time together, she was a special case and their family cherished her deeply. He was surprised by her increased crying. She asked him if he had said something strange. She replied she was crying from extreme gratitude. He asked if she was hungry, and she admitted she felt some hunger. Yehai talked to herself, confirming that the SEO family cherishes her as a family member, and that this feeling won't last forever as the player claimed. But she admitted the warmth she feels now is enough to make her believe in miracles, and that she wants to return the favor to everyone by giving them a happy ending. She decided she would accept this fate, even if her role was just a passing side character, as long as everyone would be happy. She determined to achieve a happy ending for the hero, Seo Do-kyun. On another day, she found herself in a photo studio and never imagined she would take a family photo in her life. Another system window appeared, announcing the activation of family affection toward her. Although this was a good thing, she felt a strange anxiety. She wondered sarcastically if the player would even consider the family photo a reward from the system. She thought that her feelings for Seo Do-kyun were never anything strange or shameful. Her thoughts were interrupted by Do-kyun calling her name. She answered in confusion. He asked her if she was ready. In a luxurious office bearing the name Baek Young-ju, Baek Young was presenting a report to an older man, the chairman. The chairman asked if his report concerned Seo Lee-hyum, to which Baek Young replied in the affirmative. He explained that Seo Lee-hyum's construction company had withdrawn from the new headquarters project, and a new team would take over starting next month. The chairman felt something was amiss, wondering how Seo Lee-hyum had agreed to this so easily. He asked Baek Young directly if he had managed to find one of Lee-hyum's weaknesses. Baek Young denied it categorically. The chairman slammed his desk in anger, ordering him to focus and seize available opportunities instead of sitting around playing corporate power struggles. He commanded him not to get arrogant just because he seized one project, and to use every ounce of power he had, even if it meant staining his hands with blood. He reminded him of his responsibility toward the organization that bears his name. Baek Young scoffed at the words of a man whose hands hadn't been stained by a single drop of blood. The chairman sighed but told Baek Young it was good to feel anxious, vowing that by this time next year, they would be discussing merging their faction with the Seonwan group. Shock struck Baek Young. He asked if this was meaningless, as the Seonwan group was practically still being used as a dog by his father's faction. Suddenly, the chairman delivered a powerful punch to Baek Young. He rebuked him for his tone, telling him that just looking at his face reminded him of his mother and stirred his anger. The chairman admitted his disappointment in dealing with Cha Yi-ryong, but decided to demote her and transfer her to Baek Young's team instead of killing her, out of respect for her late father. He warned him not to disappoint him again and ordered him to find the core force that would annihilate Lee-hyum's group. Baek Young left the office thinking that the leader of the Seonwon group was Ms. Cha, whom he met at the door, leaving him in astonishment. At the photo studio, Yul was grumbling about his hairstyle, calling it terrible, but Do-kyun told him to stop complaining and take the picture. The hairstylist apologized and offered to restyle it, but Mr. Lee-hyum reassured him they had plenty of time. The photographer admired Do-kyun's look and offered him a free individual shoot to be the studio's main feature. Mr. Lee-hyum and Yehai sat together for the photo, and the photographer asked them to strike a suitable pose. Mr. Lee-hyum thanked her for her quick agreement to the family photo, which might seem strange from her perspective. So she expressed her gratitude and happiness that he considered her a member of the family. Later, during Do-kyun's individual shoot, Mr. Lee-hyum asked Yehai if she had been feeling better since returning from the sea. She answered enthusiastically that she was perfectly fine, and although she hadn't slept much since that day, her body was in top shape. He explained that he meant her psychological state, not the physical one, and that it must have been hard on her due to the trauma. She wondered if Do-kyun had told him about the truck incident and tried to downplay it, but he surprised her with his answer. He told her that he hadn't heard about it from Do-kyun, but from her mother a long time ago, leaving her in shock. Mr. Lee-hyum remembered the smile of his late wife as she called him dear, and how she always smiled as if everything was all right. He admitted to himself that that smile still resonated in his mind, calling himself a fool, then called Yehai by her name. He surprised her by suggesting a reconsideration of her engagement to Do-kyun, considering her far more precious than that. She teased him that he should be on his son's side, but she thought this was her chance to cancel the engagement. which was necessary for the heroine to reach her happy ending. She asked him how the engagement was decided in the first place, adding that if it was merely out of respect for her parents' will, she asked him to cancel it for her sake and Dokyun's. She tried to clarify that she didn't hate the family. Ihyom interrupted her, revealing that the engagement was his selfish decision, which shocked her. He explained that his desire for this engagement predated her parents' will. He revealed that her parents were benefactors to him, and she was his personal responsibility. He wanted this precious bond to continue through her and Dokyun. It was merely a personal wish of his. She deduced from his explanation that he had something else he wanted to tell her. She wondered what kind of relationship her parents had with this family. Ihyom decided to tell her the truth, explaining that the trauma she still cannot fully forget began on the day her mother hid her inside a closet. That choice was the best she could do at the time. Yihai realized that Baek Yihai in the gangster's love story had gone through an experience similar to her own. Ihyom revealed that her father was his best friend and a member of his organization, and on that day, he was kidnapped and threatened because of him. She and her mother were dragged into it, and their lives were used as leverage, making the situation unbearable. Ihyom remembered how they were helpless against their superior numbers, and how her father begged them, asking about his daughter's whereabouts. The kidnappers mocked him, telling him his wife had hidden his daughter and that they were looking for her. The lead kidnapper revealed he wanted something very specific. Ihyom explained that that thing was his own wife, who offered herself as a hostage at the request of a close friend, planning to hold out as long as possible to ensure her family's safety. Ihyom described her decision as reckless, but admitted he would have done the same. And by the time he learned everything, he had just returned from a business trip abroad. Yihai asked him not to continue, but he told her that his wife had lost her life on the same day her father died. Yihai was shocked by this truth, realizing this made them arch-enemies. But he denied it, telling her that her father died trying to save his wife, and the one who saved Dokyun's life that day was her mother. Shock hit her again as she remembered that Dokyun was there too. Ahyom explained it wouldn't be right to tell his son's story as well, and what he wanted to say to her was that they both carry deep wounds, and they are the only ones capable of comforting each other, and that his wife would never have blamed her parents. Yihai wondered if she really wouldn't, for if she were in her place, she would have resented them over and over again. She realized that Baek Yihai's past and her relationships in this story were much heavier than she had imagined. Yihai realized that her past and relationships in this story were more complex than she imagined, feeling the questions pile up in her mind as she learned more. Dokyun interrupted her thoughts, telling her that her fever was gone and it was time to go. She realized to herself that they had no time to wait for all the mysteries to be solved. She determined that her most important mission now was achieving a happy ending. Even if things seemed safe, her relationship with Dokyun could become dangerous again. She wondered about the distance she should maintain between them and how to do it, especially after knowing what happened to him that day. In his room, Dokyun thought about the complexity of the situation, wondering why the employees talked so much. He admitted to himself that it wasn't a bad thing after all this time, because Baek Yihai was there too. He was surprised he kept thinking about her, but he wished her happiness. He tried to call Ms. Cha, but her phone was off. He left her a voicemail, telling her he would never forget what she did and that she definitely made a mistake. He warned her in his final message not to touch his family or Baek Yihai ever again. Yihai returned to thinking about her complex past and intertwined relationships in gangster's love, realizing it was much bigger than she envisioned. She felt those questions piling up, but decided her top priority was securing a happy ending. She thought about how her relationship with Dokyun fluctuated between safety and danger. During the photo shoot, the photographer asked them to look at the camera, and she noticed her mind was wandering. Dokyun gently nudged her to stop thinking and look at the camera. She nodded in agreement, but continued to wonder how long she should keep this distance. And how. The photographer took the family photo of all of them. As the prologue of Gangster's Love concluded, her daily life became quiet, as if nothing had happened. The chain of missions and suffocating threats disappeared, and she felt as though she had been part of this world all along. One day, while she was studying, Dokyun asked her to correct his English test paper. She was surprised he finished the test so quickly and accused him of lying, but he told her to look before speaking. She was shocked to see the paper filled with wrong and random answers, wondering what she was supposed to do. She mocked him inwardly, thinking he might be better off remaining a gangster with hired muscles at this level of intelligence, but he defended himself, saying he had filled in all the answers. They were interrupted by Yule's arrival, who called them enthusiastically. Ahyom realized to herself that this peace would not last long. Yule suggested they return home and mocked his brother, saying he should give up on studying in this life, as it wasn't one of his interests. Dokyun agreed, but she realized that the time to give up this happiness was fast approaching with the arrival of spring. On a winter day, they were walking in the street, and Yule asked her if she preferred red bean or cream-filled pastries. She answered enthusiastically that she preferred cream. Yule mocked her, considering she had no taste, but Dokyun thought that he too preferred cream. Yule mocked Yihai, calling her a child, and asked Dokyun if he had ever seen a child of this size before. Dokyun stepped in to confirm he was also Team Cream, and told Yul to stop getting so close to her face, while she teased Yul that he had become arrogant because he grew a little, and that he had scared her. While returning home, Dokyun told Yehai to be ready as soon as they arrived, because during the coming week, she would master the art of Krav Maga. She was shocked by the strange term, so he explained it was an Israeli martial art for self-defense. Characterized by its effectiveness in neutralizing threats quickly, she felt afraid of the seriousness of the matter. Since that incident, Dokyun began training her strictly in self-defense, constantly correcting her posture. Despite his strictness, she also wanted to master it, sarcastically wondering if Mr. Ehyum had felt the same way during her strange training for him. On a winter day, she offered him a piece of candy and asked him to eat it. When he took it from her, a system window appeared stating that the little gangster Seo Dokyun's heart palpitations had reached over 999 times. Dokyun commented that it was cold and suggested they go, but he tripped over Yul's foot, who told him to stop running. Yehai realized that Dokyun's heart palpitations were undoubtedly because of her, wondering what would have happened if she had simply accepted his unjustified interest in her, without shackles preventing her from reaching a happy ending. She wondered why the hero focused on her to this extent as he told her to hurry up. She allowed herself to indulge in these distracting thoughts, convincing herself they were just a passing phase. She justified his interest by thinking he perhaps hadn't met the original heroine Ye-on-Sol yet, and realized there wasn't much time left. On New Year's Eve, the family gathered to celebrate, commenting on the many changes they experienced this year, and raised their toasts to a successful end of the year. Mr. Ehyum thanked Yehai for improving his son's grades and for making the house brighter. Yul praised his father's words, saying, Nuna was the best. She expressed her gratitude and promised to take care of them in the future as well. She almost slipped up and talked about next year, but caught herself and promised to work harder from now on, unconsciously avoiding Dokyun's touch. She noticed his obsession level had risen again. She wondered why the obsession level rose again, as he had been acting strangely since she left the hospital. She was annoyed that his obsession level was rising faster than his favor level, and although it might be the reason he protected her, she decided she had to work on lowering it gradually. Because the useless feelings of a supporting character would hinder reaching a happy ending, she determined to settle things bit by bit before the main story began. During dinner, she thanked Mr. Ehyum for hosting her, asserting she hadn't felt lonely at all over the past half year. Yul asked her about her sudden emotional outburst. Mr. Ehyum told her she was no longer a guest or a stranger, but a member of the family. Yul teased him that he was stirring up year-end emotions. She laughed in turn, commenting that the party was very enjoyable. Later that night, after they had enjoyed their time, she lay on her bed feeling as if she had held a secret farewell party for herself, which made her sad. She thought that once the new semester began, she would have to dedicate all her efforts to helping Ye-on-Sol. But the bright side was that progress wouldn't be too difficult, because she still remembered parts of the story. From Ye-on-Sol's perspective, she believed if she followed the moments when Dokyun's violent tendencies calmed down, she might be able to guide them to a happy ending more easily than she expected. She remembered a scene from the game where he held Ye-on-Sol's hand on the beach while she complained of pain. Yehai remembered a touching scene from the game where Dokyun was sitting on the beach blaming himself for hurting the heroine Ye-on-Sol again. He was wondering if she feared and hated him, begging her to leave him alone whether he lived or died, but she refused his request, admitting she loved him, comparing him to a frightened stray cat, which sparked his surprise. She told him she might not fully understand everything he went through, but she assured him she wanted to stay by his side. He asked her why. She admitted she didn't know the reason either, and that it might just be an irresistible force. Yehai returned in her memory to the present, wondering if achieving love between them required more than just an irresistible force. She decided that regardless of anything, they must find happiness, and she had to be ready to leave by then. She wasn't sure if seeing the happy ending would return her to her reality, so she decided to secure a way to survive in this world, checking her bank account, which contained a large amount. She noticed a countdown on her phone indicating 370 days until she turned 20, and thought about getting a part-time job next year. Her thoughts were interrupted by Dokyun, who suddenly entered her room and asked what she was doing with the door open. He told her he had just arrived. He rebuked her for her lack of caution and told her they would begin Krav Maga training immediately without any delay. She protested his request, explaining she would vomit everything she ate if she did that now. She dropped her phone from her hand, and he described her as inattentive. She tried to pick it up, but he beat her to it. He noticed the countdown on her screen and asked if she was waiting for something next year. She hesitated to tell him, but decided that surprising him later would be worse. She decided to tell him the truth. She explained that she planned to move out and live alone once she became an adult, and that she would start preparing for that next year, which shocked him. He ruled out that his father had pressured her to leave, so she assured him it was her own idea, and that she didn't want to be a burden on them. especially since her parents' will required their care for her until she became an adult. She told him with a smile that she wouldn't delay it and would leave at this time next year. He grabbed her angrily, wondering how she could plan all this alone after they just became a family. He accused her that she must feel uncomfortable and that this was why she was planning to leave. She tried to calm him down, asserting he should take her words literally, and that she would leave only when the time came, but he refused to believe her. She asked him why he was overreacting, considering that the disappearance of someone like her shouldn't matter. He exploded in anger, reminding her that his entire family watched her as she was on the verge of death, terrified of the thought of losing her. He wished she would be honest with him and tell him she was tired of the chaos that comes with being associated with his family so he could find a solution, but he hated the idea of her hiding her true feelings and planning to escape alone. She commented that he seemed very strange. He replied that he wasn't. Then he revealed the real reason for his concern, that they were going to be engaged. At that moment, a system window appeared announcing a sudden event activated. He drew closer and asked her to talk to him so he could fix things. She felt he was too close and decided not to get flustered. She told him that this was exactly what made her feel uncomfortable. She admitted to him that she liked kind people, but he sometimes acted frighteningly. A warning window appeared stating that his abnormal condition was beginning to fade.